high fly to center. That'll get the job done. At the wall, that ball is going to be off the fence. Barrero scores. Walker on his way to third. He's going to make it with a belly flop. Back-to-back triples for the Cardinals in the eighth. That's more like it. It's 6-4.
That's what it sounded like last night on FanDuel Sports Midwest alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex, I got a lot of grief yesterday because I posted a social video from our show. And I said, hey, Jordan Walker prior to May 14th was not performing particularly well. And then since then, yeah, it's only a 2-week sample, but it's been better. It's not perfect, but it's been better. The strikeouts still way above where you'd want them to be. But again, the process looks better and the results are really... Are you already yawning while I'm making a take?
Yeah.
We just started the show, man.
Sorry, man, you bore me.
The process looks better and so do the results. And people basically came back to me and said, BK... You just like watching bad baseball. You're from Kansas City. This is what you grew up with. Yeah, there's some truth to that. But also, it looks better, dude. And yesterday, he continued that. He's now batting .345 in his last 10 games. He hit a triple yesterday, and now he has 3 out of his last 4 games in which he has multiple hits. Jordan Walker is getting better, guys. I don't know how long this will continue. I don't know if this progress is going to be real a month from now. But today, we can break this season up into segments. The last 10 games, that segment for Jordan Walker looks really freaking good, man. He's hitting the crap out of the baseball. He's hitting for extra bases now. He's driving runners in. He's been great with runners in scoring position. That one strikeout excluded, that happens from time to time. It is what it is. What do you make, Alex, of Jordan Walker's recent hot stretch and whether or not this can be something that he builds upon?
I'm seeing more and more confidence with Jordan Walker. And I know I said that at the beginning of the season, and then he went into his lulls. But I think I said this a couple of weeks ago with you guys, asking, how many times he's had multiple hits in a game in the season? And it was twice. And one was coming off of a game that he had multiple hits. Now go back and look at what he's done in his last 4 or 5 games. He's got a lot of occurrences where he's coming up with multiple hits. And to me,
3 in his last 4.
That's the growth that we're talking about. That's a different Jordan Walker. Whatever he's working on is having success. And I'll tell you the moment that it felt like for me Jordan Walker was a different guy. It was when he struck out with the guy at third base, 2 outs, the chance to tie the baseball game. And at that point, I'm thinking, oh, geez, you strike out there. There's no coming back from that one. And then 2 innings later, he comes up with the hit to extend the lead after Nolan Gorman's triple. You're seeing the in-game progress with Jordan Walker. And I think BT referenced this yesterday with TMA. And even the game against the Orioles where he went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, BT said you could see him thinking when he's at the plate. You could see him trying to decipher, okay, is it going to be a fastball or is it going to be an off-speed pitch? What are we getting next? So, yes, the progress of Jordan Walker is going from at the beginning of the season of a guy like, I don't know what we're going to get. He had his lull, and now you're starting to see coming out of the pits, the doldrums of the season, to where Jordan Walker is starting to be a confident guy when he steps to the plate.
And I thought at the beginning of the year, and I'm talking like the first 5 games of the season, he looked the way that he does right now. He looked comfortable. Yep. He looked like he had a better process in place to get himself into a good hitting position. And then that all changed. And he looked lost. And that took a long time to get away from. And so, T-Bone, I'm not saying, Walker is fixed. He's a star. This is the guy we've all been waiting for. He has arrived, right? This is the prince that was promised. I have no idea if that's going to be the case. No clue. I don't know. Anybody can truly sell you on that after what we have seen over the last, really 3 years from Jordan Walker. But it looks better. And this is it's still a small sample size. But it's not nothing anymore. Now it is a 10-game stretch where we're seeing these kinds of results. I mean, I'm going to read you off some batted balls real quick. These are the exit velos for Jordan Walker. T-Bone, you like it when big guy hit ball hard, right?
Oh, yeah.
108, 112, 108, 101, 106, 113, 111, 108, 114, 103, and last night on the triple, 108 again. That is all over the last 11 days. That's pretty darn impressive when you look at those batted ball numbers for a guy that previously it was 78, 74, 87, 107, 80, 93, 76. This is different. It is different in the process, and the results are showing itself. T-Bone, where are you at with Walker right now? I know yesterday you were pretty upset about everything.
First off, lies. But second, he looks better right now. And it is a 10-game sample size, so it is a decent amount. I'm curious to see how long it sustains. Now, he's not going to hit like 345 in this stretch. But, man, I mean, you read off those numbers. When he makes contact, he doesn't make soft contact. He hits the ball freaking hard, which should help really boost his numbers. The thing that I find interesting is when you look at this 10-game stretch for him where he is having this success, he's not walking. And the reason I bring that up, it's 0 in 10 games. The reason I bring that up is when you go back to early on, the first 9 games of the year when he had another really good stretch, he was only hitting 294, but the on-base was at 400 because he walked 5 times in 40 plate appearances. I wonder if he's almost said, hey, Burley, dude, I'm going to do my best Burley impression. I'm going to go up there, I'm going to swing, and I'm going to let it fly. And I'm going to hope that I hit the baseball.
And you know what? That's
if
fine.
It works, it works. Hey, however you got to do you, long as it works. And I think that is one thing. We'll see if that continues, but that is one thing that I have found a little bit interesting is it feels like he's more of a free swinger. Now, he does strike out still quite a bit, 11 strikeouts in this stretch, but I like what we are seeing from him. My question will be for him is, one, okay, what does this look like over, say, a 20 to 30 game sample size, right? We've seen a lot of guys can get hot for a 10-game stretch. So what does it look like here for about the next 20 games or so? And then my other question will be, okay, so once you feel like you've got this figured out, we know how baseball is. It's the beauty of baseball. Baseball's going to figure out what adjustment Jordan Walker has just made. My question then will be, okay, how quick can you get out of that lull again? Is it going to be another month to 35 days like we just saw him go through, or will he be able to adjust a lot faster? Because that's what separates the boys from men at the big leagues.
Yeah, the other thing is he's doing this against quality pitching. Like, if he was doing this against the Rockies and the White Sox, I'd have further questions of, is this just a talent thing, right? Like, sometimes you see an offense in the NFL put up, week 1, 55 points. Like, holy hell, where did that come from? And then you see it 5 weeks from then, and you look at the opposing defense that they went up against, and it's like, oh, they're giving up 40 to everybody. That was a reflection of the defense, not that offense. For Walker right now, I mean, KC has a good rotation. Detroit has a good rotation and a great bullpen. Arizona has a really good rotation. What we've seen from Baltimore is okay. It's okay starters for the most part, but he's not doing this against the really, really bad pitchers that are on the schedule the way that, the Cubs right now are beating up some really terrible pitching that they're going up against. So there's really very few caveats that I have to give with Walker's success over the last 10 games. But T-Bone's right. There will be another thing for him. What I do like, and this goes back to the Brant Brown conversation we've had a million times in the first 2 months of the season, I like that Brant Brown seems to be comfortable with guys having their own approach. Everything is individualized. You mentioned Alec Burleson. Burleson's going to have success in a very different way than Lars Nootbaar. And Lars Nootbaar is going to have success in a very different way than Mason Wynn, who's going to have success in a slightly different way than Victor Scott, right? Scott is a little more patient. Mason Wynn is a little more aggressive at the plate. All of those are fine. You should have different skill sets, different variety within your lineup. But that gets us back to Walker, who at one point in time I thought was going to be a high average and high walk rate guy. Maybe he's not going to be that. Maybe at the big league level, it's just never quite going to work out for him to be a big-time walk guy. Maybe he's going to be more of I hit for power and I hit for contact. Mm-hmm. That is more similar to Burleson, but maybe with even a little bit more pop available in that bat than what Burleson has. And the intent with his swing right now is to do damage. And that's what I like that we've seen that does seem to be different from what we were witnessing from Walker earlier in the season.
Well, and you're starting to see that damage, whether it's the extra base hits or do you guys know where he ranks in terms of with runners in scoring position this season? Because me, I love my RISP.
Is he high?
Are you talking about Walker?
Yeah, where he ranks in terms of RBI and batting average.
With runners in scoring position.
I would think he'd be low, but it feels like a BK game.
I know. I like this.
It's an Alex game, all right? I created it.
BK said it was his show in the office.
Because you're asking, let's go a 315 average with runners in scoring position.
So not a 315. He's batting 290, but he's fourth. And he's got the third most RBIs in runners in scoring position on the team.
I'm surprised
I
by
would
that.
not have assumed that.
And he's taken 45 at-bats in that position, which is third most on the team.
That's really interesting.
He's doing damage with the extra base hits, but he's also doing the damage when guys are in scoring position, which is why it's been like, okay, I understand his numbers aren't sexy, but it does feel like we're measuring his numbers because we're expecting this star-studded player to just erupt onto the scene.
Love this game. Can we continue? You're looking at the whole thing right now. I would
Yeah.
assume. Can you pull it down for a second? Just
Well, yeah, but
Okay.
I already looked at it, but sure.
T-Bone can play the game.
I didn't look at all of it, but
Walker is 5th on the team in batting average with runners in scoring position. Can you guess the other top 5?
I think Donovan's high.
Donovan he's at number 2. He's batting .355 with the runners in scoring position this year.
not a three-hole hitter, am I
And by the
right,
way,
T-Bone?
He
second.
can't hit lefties, though.
There is somebody that is above him.
Is it Win?
Nope. Wynn is, though, in the top 5. He's 4th right now, batting .300 with runners in scoring position. Also not a guy that you want in the top 3, according to Tanner Hendrickson.
Not a two-hole hitter. God, this is bad for you, man.
You're missing
I hate you
1
guys.
and 3 right now.
1 and 3. Herrera?
Donovan 2, Scott 3. Damn it. Donovan 2.
I was going to say, come on, man. You
Walker
spoiled
5.
the game.
He said Herrera.
Yeah.
Herrera's batting .500 with the runners in scoring position.
Now,
this
he's only
season.
had like 25 at-bats, but still, 500 is impressive.
I'm surprised Scott's up there, too. And that's not because, Scott's playing poorly. I don't
That's that
feel
double
that way.
leadoff,
I
though.
love this.
That's
so
what
you've
we
got
talked about.
Herrera, Donovan, Scott, Wynn, Walker, and Paje, surprisingly enough, is actually 6th with 38 plate appearances. He's been
these
a really
things, it's not like the
successful
I wonder why
clutch
we didn't
hitter.
pinch hit for him in that Detroit series.
That's your top 6. Sajasi in very limited opportunities was batting .275.
Yeah.
The only non-young player, the only veteran, really, that is in your top 8
Contreras.
is Wilson Contreras, who's batting .281 with runners in scoring position. All those other guys are young. I love that.
And
Love
see,
seeing that.
that's where Brant Brown's impact is, in my opinion, has come to fruition. Like, these guys were, some of them we didn't see, but most of them we've seen in these runners in scoring position situations because I've been complaining about it for 3 years. You can't come up with clutch hits. And now Brant Brown's got them handling the at-bat approach significantly different than what they were in years past.
So they're hitting for. Are they out of? I'm just curious. Are they slugging with runners in scoring
Well,
position? 'Cause
Ivan
that was the
Herrera
other
is
thing.
slugging .835 with runners in scoring position.
Walker is not slugging.
Donovan .440, Scott .555,
Okay.
Wynn .325. So Mason Wynn is not slugging with runners in scoring position, but he is hitting for a ton of average at .300. So you'll live with that. Walker is actually he's slugging .465 with runners in scoring position, and Pajes .550 slugging percentage with runners in scoring.
Exactly why they didn't pinch it for him.
I mean, yeah, it probably is. I know that. I don't think you make decisions based on 38 plate appearances, but if you did, I mean, I could see you citing that number and being like, hey, Clutch, what do you want me to do? The guy comes up with big situations and he drives the runs in.
So what we've determined today, the Cardinals are clutch in RISP.
They're clutch in general. You mentioned this before the show as we were talking about things, Alex. Like yesterday, once again, you're down late and you have that situation where Walker doesn't come through. And then later on, you have another opportunity and they come through in that spot, man.
25.4% chance of winning when Walker struck out in the 6th inning. And at that time last year, I would have said, done. Cardinals aren't winning. And instead, they come back, they tie the game the next inning, and then the following inning, Gorman comes through with the triple, and then Walker comes through with the triple.
Like, think about the guys that came through last night for you, right? Lars Nootbaar was 1 for his last 19, goes 3 for 4 with the home run in the game, also walked.
That's a T-bone bump.
Mason Wynn, 2 for 5 in that one. Alec Burleson once again comes through. Jordan Walker wasn't even slated to start that game, ends up hitting 8th for you despite all of his recent success, has the massive triple. We've all been out on Nolan Gorman. He comes up with a huge triple as well. Nolan Arenado, who has not been hitting for any power whatsoever. Saw a Cardinals fan on social media yesterday. Oh, I guess Nolan Arenado is just going to finish the season with a sub 700 OPS, and then boom, home run by Nolan Arenado. Like, it's everybody. This is what the Cardinals are in 2025. Any given night, it could be anybody. They have some consistent players in that lineup, no doubt about it, guys that are well outperforming expectations, but overall, it is a true team effort. And that's the best version of this team that you could have asked for.
This is the difference because the last couple of years has been if Goldschmidt, Arenado, or Contreras aren't hitting, then the team is losing. And now, if one guy's not doing well, Lars Nootbaar, 1 for 19 prior, they've got 3 other guys who are going to come up with a big hit for him. Yeah, you just don't feel it when there's an absence of one player.
That was your tweet, wasn't it? The Arenado one?
No, some guy like...
No.
on Twitter that I follow. I don't know why, honestly. He goes through the ebbs and the flows.
I don't know why I follow him.
I just enjoy watching the ebbs and the flows of the season because in the offseason, Cardinals are going undefeated, and then you get like 5 games in, they're 3-2. Oh my God, this team's not going to be able to get it done.
This team
it's
stinks.
Really amazing. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes. I'm sure that's how some people feel listening to our show.
No.
In 15 minutes,
straight
Jordan
shooters.
Kyrou landed on a list that you definitely don't want to be associated with. We'll get into that in 15 minutes. But next, how do we feel about Andre Pallante right now in the Cardinals rotation? We'll give you our thoughts. I think I might need a therapy session coming up here on BK and Ferrario. Need you to talk me off the ledge. I see Andre Pallante's numbers. He's got a 4.2 ERA. He's giving you innings. He's been a more than adequate number 5 starter. More than adequate number 5 starter. He's been above league average so far this season. I should not be complaining about this. Do not look a gift horse in the mouth, right? And yet here I am.
He said look or lick. He said lick.
I meant look. If I
He
said
said
lick,
don't look a workhorse in the mouth. Well, I would never do that.
gift horse. We'll get there. Andre Pallante is 26 years old. Nobody expected him 2 years ago to be a consistent part of this rotation. And yet here he is, and he's a good one. Alex is yawning again. I'm boring him once more.
Can we get some hockey talk or something?
We'll do that in the next segment. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line to get involved in the show. We'll do that at 11:45. We'll give you our 2 minutes on City firing its coach. And yet, Alex, I watch Andre Pallante, especially over the last couple of starts, and I think to myself, is this good enough? Like, is this really what the Cardinals are going to have in their rotation when Michael McGreevy is available to them? And the answer should probably just be, yeah, like, what do you want? This is what a 5 starter looks like. You go 5 innings. Yes, it's not as pretty as you'd like. It's basically what your guy was, Dakota Hudson, previously, where it's not fun to watch because he's walking the world, and he's not, last night he actually struck out more than you'd expect, but generally speaking, not a big strikeout artist. And so there's balls in play, there's a bunch of guys on base, and he's getting out of these bases loaded jams consistently, and I don't think that is something that can sustain over time. And yet it has. And he has this crazy ground ball rate, and I'm sure that's part of it because he doesn't give up a lot of extra base hits other than that homer yesterday. But Alex, as I'm watching this, I think to myself, he cannot keep getting away with this. And he does. So I need you all to talk me off of the ledge. Should I be feeling better about Andre Pallante than obviously what I currently am?
I mean, I guess my follow-up question to you would be, when you say, is this as good as we can get? I think that's how you phrased it in the opening. I was yawning, so I wasn't really listening at the time. What is it that you're looking for from Pallante? Are you expecting him to be like a 3 in your rotation, or are you expecting him to be a 4 or a 5 for you? Because if you're expecting upside with Pallante, then yeah, I think you're reasonable standing on the side of the edge with this, because he's never going to be what Matthew Liberatore has looked like this season. You're never going to have the upside with Pallante, it seems, of dude's got the swing and miss stuff. He's got the ability to keep games tight no matter what. You know what he is every night. I don't think he's that. But if you're looking at a 4 or a 5 in a rotation, I think this is a prototypical 4 or 5.
You're right.
Like a ground ball pitcher, a pitch to contact guy who has a little bit of swing and miss stuff. Now, the walks are a problem, but let's also remember that last year was the first, and it was half of the season, the first where they were like, hey, you were a mainstay in the rotation. You figured it out. There's still a little bit of growth here with Andre Pallante.
I think this is who he is. His walk rate in Major League Baseball, 9%, 10%, 9%, 9%. So this is who he is. I don't think it's going to change.
But he's 26 years old, and there's always areas of improvement with that. But even if the walk rate goes down a little tick, he's always going to be a ground ball pitcher. He's always going to be a contact guy. His strikeout stuff is never going to look that good, and he's typically going to give you somewhere between 5 and 7 innings. But if you're cool with a guy that's going to be that for 162 games and maybe gives you 150, 175 innings, I mean, I think you're overreacting a little bit. That's a number 5.
No, I am overreacting.
Cool. Congrats.
And I understand that. Do you guys ever have this where you watch something and you're not pleased by what you're seeing, but then you take a step back and you're like, man, it's fine. Like there's no reason to be worried about this. It probably for you, Jordan Walker, T-Bone. But like,
right in the rib cage.
I see with Walker, with Pallante.
And Walker.
He has the highest. Yeah, Walker has this issue too. But it's a good thing for Pallante. He has the highest ground ball rate in Major League Baseball so far this year.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's 62%. And again, this is something that has been consistent for him. It's like 60+% every year of his Major League career. So he just has this stuff where he's an outlier. He can get away with the walks because he has a little more strikeout stuff than you'd expect. And more often than not, he's going to get into like ground ball double play situations because of the percentage of ground balls that he gets. This year, he has more of a home run issue than he's had in his past. I think that small sample size theater. We'll see if that is indeed the case. But man, I guess maybe this is just like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop with this rotation.
Man, you're doing this with a lot of elements on the Cardinals this year.
Really, just the rotation.
And Ivan Herrera.
Well, that's
He could really hit 400, okay?
He could really hit 500 with runners in scoring position.
I'm just waiting
So
to
negative.
like, what is he long term? I'm not worried about him, but can he be? Like, what is it going to look like? I don't know. That one I'm excited to watch. This one I watch with like one eye closed because I'm like,
the tight butt cheeks.
Everything okay? We're going to be good. We're going to get out of this one. Is this the day where it all comes falling to the ground?
But this is like the one thing Cardinals fans, I don't know if it's complain or just reiterate, is the Cardinals know how to churn out 4 and 5s in the rotation. Like, they know how to find these guys that can just be pieces that fill in the spot. The problem's at the top end of the rotation. So if you get this out of Pallante for the next 3 years, and then let's say the other shoe does drop and he's not this anymore, don't you expect the Cardinals to be able to find another one of these guys?
Oh, I'm talking about just for this year. But yes, I agree with you. You should be able to get the problem for the Cardinals in recent years is that they haven't turned through those guys. They've failed to produce the next Andre Pallante, Michael McGreevy, Gordon Graceffo, like those guys that are in this range right now. They have really struggled to do so. I think this is a good text from the 314. Guys, when the defense is playing top 5 level, you're fine. But on days where the defense isn't there or years when we aren't elite in that area, he's not the right play. He plays to a team's strength, which is what you want. Yesterday wasn't that day. Yesterday, they just didn't have a great day defensively, and this has been a little bit of a trend recently. This is now like 3 games in their last 5 probably where you haven't been up to snuff defensively. It is something that I've got my eye on a bit. But yeah, that's probably what I recognized yesterday more than anything, is it's misplaced frustration by me, where I'm mad at Pallante for something that the defense is actually probably more at fault for.
Maybe you should find a way to temper your anger and not get mad so much.
Yeah, that's something I'm
I like this text from the 636. I think this one's really good. BK's dumb self would probably prefer Erik Karlsson as the 5th guy in the rotation.
He plays hockey, so that would be difficult.
Yeah, but you'd find a way to put him there.
I didn't know what that was in reference to. I'm going to be honest. I was sitting here going, have we talked about an Erik Karlsson? I know Dylan Carlson kicked our butt on Monday.
Erik Karlsson plays hockey for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's probably going to be available for somebody to trade for this offseason. I have said he would be somebody that I'd be interested in.
I think the text is just saying BK has bad takes.
While also understanding that it would be a stupid trade that nobody should sign up for.
I've accepted when it comes to Andre Pallante that it's going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be a ride throughout his starts. It's fine though. It's better than paying $15 million for a ride on a roller coaster. I'd much rather pay
last year with Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson.
Yeah, I'd much rather pay whatever he's getting, like $2 million. I think is what his salary is this year. Like, I'd much rather have that go on this ride because he's always going to be the guy that you just look to upgrade from, right? Like when they make a move, if they are buyers at the deadline and they add pitching, you know the guy they're kicking out of the rotation. It's not Michaelis. It's not Fetty, unless they trade Fetty, but it's not him.
Sure.
It's Pallante. Pallante's the guy that goes out, and though he doesn't have swing and miss, he could become. Maybe. I mean, he had trouble with this in the last year when he was in the bullpen. He can hopefully become like your Seth Maness ground ball specialist that you go to. One thing that is interesting for him is he's gotten back to where he can't get righties out. So, like, that becomes a problem. But I've just accepted, like, hey, this is who he is. I'm not overly upset about what it becomes. Like, sure, there probably are going to be times where this is ugly. There's also going to be times where you just get the solid 6 innings that you need.
So, I think Randy said this previously about your guy Dakota Hudson, where he's like, just don't watch his starts. Like, if you just
tune
look
in
back
the 6th
and you see what the results were, you'll be much more pleased by the Dakota Hudson experience. And I think we're seeing some of that with Andre Pallante. NY in the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN STL, said, BK just feels like you're trying to find something to complain about because things are going well with the Cardinals. I don't think I'm trying to find something to complain about so much as it is like, I'm trying to figure out how this doesn't work.
You're kamikazeing your relationship is what you're doing.
Maybe when you're in a that's a really that's what's happening.
You're finding the bad things about the girl.
Used to break up. With
you're finding the bad things because you don't think it's going to be good because you've been hurt too many times.
You know what? You are 100% correct. That is exactly what's happening here.
We learned you've been cheated on a lot in your life.
Only a few times, but it hasn't happened in a really long time.
That's good because you're
not
married.
by my wife, so that's good.
That's good. I'm glad that. But you're kamikazeing your relationship where you just got to let it go, man. You just got to let it fly.
I know, but this specific relationship with this specific person has gone very poorly in recent seasons.
No, man, this isn't the Cardinals' problem. They got to just find the top end of the pitchers.
I have been very much in favor of sticking around with this relationship. And not only has it been cheating, it's been like emotionally exhausting.
Yeah, but this one is telling you That she loves you. This
no,
one's saying, like, I'm the real deal, and you've got to let it happen.
See, I'm not sure I'm getting the I love you vibes. I am definitely getting this as a fun time vibes.
Oh, you're in the friend circle?
Oh, no, I'm not in the friend circle.
Oh, yeah. See, BK's
no, this
feeling...
this is stupid. But this girl, these Cardinals.
The Cardinals, yeah.
Yeah. They are a fun time, right? I don't know if we're gonna fall in love, but I'm having a fun time. You know.
So one night stand is what you're saying.
I'm here for the ride. I'm here for the ride. Yeah.
We get some up texts at night.
Oh yeah.
I got one last night. It was the 6th inning, and then it happened again in the 7th, and that one then we responded, and then the 8th.
Yeah, you see what happened? You looked at her phone, and that was the Jordan Walker strikeout, and then you regretted it once Jordan Walker came through with the big hit later on.
So you're saying, like, as I'm watching Andre Pallante, that is me while she's in the shower looking through her phone to find something?
Yeah. And then when she comes out of the shower and she
throw it on the ground?
Yeah.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the incoming text line to get involved in the show. At 11:45, we'll get to questions and answers. We'll try to answer some questions about why City just fired its coach, or why it took so long to fire its coach, honestly. But next, Jordan Kyrou landed on a list you frankly don't want to be on. We'll tell you what that is next year on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals took down the Baltimore Orioles last night by a score of 7-4. Rubber match of the series is tonight. 5:35 will be first pitch. Miles Michaelis will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Time is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. CMilano.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, Jordan Kyrou was on a list today.
Yeah.
That you really don't want to be a part of.
Nope.
So
not a good one.
Over on The Athletic, they put together a list of the players that had really bad postseason so far. The all-bust list for the postseason. And I think this is a little unfair. I don't think that Jordan Kyrou was like this massive liability for the Blues while on the ice. He ended up scoring, I think it was 3 goals in 7 games in the Blues first round series. Do you think this is fair? Do you think this is reasonable for Kyrou to be listed among the all-bust team? He was the only Blue to make it.
Yeah, I think it's fair because the way that they framed this was a guy who had a lot of success in the regular season but did not live up to that success in the postseason. Now, another one that you could put on this list would be Pavel Buchnevich. But I guess the argument for the sake of why Kyrou over Buchnevich was, I don't know if Pavel Buchnevich's lack of performance in the playoffs was a bust. He didn't really perform in the regular season. Kyrou, 3rd straight season with 70 points. He hit the 30-goal number once again, and he was a factor into the Blues making the playoffs. And then, yes, he scored 3 goals. 2 of them were on the power play, and one of those 3 were in blowout games to where it was already out of hand. I think it was that game 3, where the Blues won 7-2. So, but on top of that, that was all he produced. 3 goals. There were no assists. He was a minus in he was a minus in 3 of those games. He was a plus in 2, and he was a neutral in 2. But the shots on goal, all but 2 games, he had fewer than 2 shots on goal. So I understand why they put him on here. I can explain why Jordan Kyrou was a bust in their opinion. He didn't have the guy that made him Jordan Kyrou in the regular season on the line was Dylan Holloway. Like, that line was why Jordan Kyrou hit the 70-point number once again. So I think it's fair because he was a guy that was looked at as somebody who should carry the team, and he didn't help the team win in the playoffs. So I would have him on that list.
I think I would as well.
Really?
And I'm not like 100% convinced on this. Like, there's a chance that if you lay out a really good argument, I could flip script on this. But I think, to your point on, hey, there were a couple of games where it felt like you just didn't notice him. Now, that's a little unfair because I think we looked at the numbers. I remember when we were at Enterprise Center for Game 6, it was, hey, you look at the advanced metrics. The advanced metrics would tell you, hey, this guy is actually driving offense. But, like, the eye test to me would say, I feel like there are times that I'm not noticing him, and he only had the 1 goal at 5-on-5. And I understand, yes, well, hey, he had 3, and those do matter. But that series, we had talked about it, was going to be about, hey, can you beat the Winnipeg Jets at 5-on-5? And that line, part of the reason because of Holloway, to me, did not do much. I think there would have been an argument for potentially Buchnevich on this or Shen on this as well, but I would put Kyrou on here.
Do you think it's fair that Matthews is on this list?
Austin Matthews?
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't produce.
He had more points than Kyrou in the second round. He had 1 goal, but he had 4 points.
Sure.
So, I mean, he's helping produce offense to the same level that Jordan Kyrou was in that second round. But the reason he's on that list is because
he's a superstar. I
and the reason
him to a higher standard than Jordan Kyrou.
And the reason Toronto lost to Florida was because their best players did not show up. And that's part of the reason that Jordan Kyrou... Again, I could hear the argument of Pavel Buchnevich being on this list.
Yeah, I would say neither, honestly. Like, Buch had a hat trick. That game...
It was one game, though.
Sure. And overall, he had 8 points. Like,
yeah.
If we're going to talk about driving offense and using these assist numbers, like, if we're going to hold that against Jordan Kyrou, the fact that he only had 3 goals and he had 0 assists in the series, I also have to use it as a credit toward Pavel Buchnevich, who had 5 assists in that series. I don't think that the Blues underperformed in that series. I don't. I think the Blues basically played to expectations. I think Winnipeg was the better team going in. I think the Blues had every opportunity to be able to advance. and then they lost it with 2 seconds remaining. And if they had won that series, I don't think we're looking back and saying, man, you know who really needs to step up in a massive way in that second round? It's Jordan Kyrou. I don't think he was the same player after that big hit. Was it Stanley that laid that on him? I don't think he was the same guy in the series following that hit. I also think discrediting some of his goals is a little unfair. One of them in a game that they ended up losing was like bring them within a goal in the second period, I think it was. And then another was in a first period. Kyrou was fine. I don't think he was great, but he was fine in my opinion. I will be curious to see if he can take that to another level in future seasons, or if this becomes more of like, hey, this is the version of Kyrou that you're getting. But T-Bone, I think what you said is interesting. I do feel as though there are moments, lengthy stretches of time where you don't feel Jordan Kyrou's impact on the game. And I think that's the reality of players like Kyrou. We've talked about this many times. Kyrou's not somebody that you're going to feel with his physical involvement. He's not somebody that you're going to feel with his ability to like get a heavy forecheck going. He's not Dylan Holloway. He's not Braden Shin. He's not Jake Neighbors, nor should he be. He is a guy that when you put the puck on his stick, he can either be a threat to score or a threat to help somebody else score in most situations. So I think it's pretty unfair to have Kyrou in a list like this, but whatever. It's a national list. I don't put a whole lot of stock into it. They've got to fill the team, and if you're going to fill the team with a bunch of guys that failed in the postseason, eventually you get to Jordan Kyrou's list.
I think a lot of this, and you've made this comparison before, I think a lot of how we're talking about Jordan Kyrou is what people are going to be saying about Jason Robertson when Dallas is eventually kicked out of the playoffs.
Now, he's hurt. He's missing a bunch of games. So.
Yeah, but I mean, still, it's a guy they have no secondary scoring right now. Like, Their offense is coming from 3 guys, and that's about it. And Jason Robertson is a guy that doesn't provide a whole lot of defense. He's not a physical player. I understand that he's hurt, but you can make the argument on Jordan Kyrou. Potentially he was hurt in that one as well.
No, like Robertson literally.
No, I know. But at the end of the day, what they're going to look at in that playoff series is like Jason Robertson had 2 goals in 10 games. There's a reason that they lost.
Yeah.
I mean, Austin Matthews was hurt as well in that series, and everyone is talking about how he scored 1 goal. Like, that's what it comes down to. You're judged off of playoff performances, and if you don't come through in the big moments when you are labeled, whether you want to label him the star or not, because I agree, like, he's not going to be the guy that should be labeled in the same category as Mikko Rantanen and all these other ones. But you are the guy that's the highest paid player that people are going to be looking at to change the outcome of the game.
Yeah, Robertson against Winnipeg in that series that they had scored 0 goals. Yep. He had 1 point in the series against Winnipeg. I think some of this is just like, the Blues went up against a really freaking good defensive team. And so it was hard to score goals. It was hard to produce points. And when you're stifled like that offensively against a team like Winnipeg, I mean, really the only guy for Dallas that had offensive success was Rantanen. Yeah. And if you're going up against that team and you're Jordan Kyrou and you're held mostly off of the score sheet, but you do find a way to score 3 goals, I'm going to give you a little bit of credit for that. In fact, like I would say that's impressive by him. But I know I'm alone on this. In general, I am the like Jordan Kyrou defender, not just on our show, but in media. So I'm biased. I'll end up being wrong. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, we'll be joined by the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. But, Alex, we've been asked by this by a number of different people on the text line. 314-399-9646, again, is the Air Comfort Service text line to get your questions in. So let's go ahead and answer this. What is your take on City SC firing its coach yesterday?
I think it had to happen. I think it probably should have happened a lot sooner. I mean, we were talking about this, 2 weeks ago, that they should fire, and it didn't happen. I made the argument that it's like, look, you can fire the coach, but Lutz still being in charge doesn't fix the problem, but you can't fix that problem in season. I mean, this is a mess that goes back to them firing Carnell, thank you. For some reason, I want to say Crannell, and it's not correct.
That was necessary, too.
It was necessary at the time, but then they wanted a new identity for the team, and this guy didn't provide the identity. This just feels like a jumbled mess that's not going to get fixed until they take measures at the front office level. But you can't do that in the season. I understand that. So this was the necessary means. I just think it probably should have happened. If you were trying to ignite a spark to help City SC's season to where they were expected to make the playoffs, you probably should have done this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I can't believe it took them this long to get to this point. And then even their handling of it was weird. Like yesterday, he runs practice. He runs their training session, speaks to the media while they apparently had fired the assistant that he brought with him from over in Sweden. They fired him, so he wasn't on the field. So, like, I would think he knew what was coming. But I think they believe it's a playoff team, right? And this is the classic conversation that we had when the Blues let go of Berube. And then when they let go of Drew Bannister this past year, you know, you're just going through that hourglass and you're coming down to where, okay, who's really at fault in this? And right now they believe, hey, this is a playoff roster. And they are kind of tying it up to, hey, we've been out without a couple, we've dealt with injuries, but we still think we should have better results. Okay, so you're making the move on the coach. If it doesn't turn around, though, even now with the change, I don't know how you can have Lutz hire the next head coach. It would be 3 in 3 years. They've got to find somebody that can be sustainable with them, and they've got to find a direction. I mean, Lutz said in his press release yesterday, you know, we want to get back to the style of play we had in year one. Okay, well, it was clear that the coach you just let go was not going to play that style, so how did he get hired if that was what you guys wanted to get back to? So they're a mess. We'll see if they turn it around. I'm not expecting them to. If they don't, I think you have to make a change in the front office.
Yeah. I also just wonder, like, why did they deconstruct the team the way they did from that year one?
That's my biggest thing.
Like, you had so much success with that team. And listen, I know it went stale. Like, at the end of that season, they weren't scoring. And then the beginning of the next season, they weren't scoring as well. But they had already, at that point, traded off from some of those pieces. And it just makes you wonder, like, was that really the original sin here? Could they have continued to have some more success in that regard? It's hard to know. We are dealing with limited information on the outside looking in, right? Maybe there were specific personality things that they wanted to make sure worked within the group. So much of this is, like, soccer maybe more so than anything else, a chemistry experiment. So it's hard to know for certain, but a lot, it feels, and this is a feeling thing, want to make that clear, most of the individuals that Lutz has a previous history with or knows more intimately from his time over in Europe, a lot of those guys remain. A lot of the guys that he did not have the previous history with are gone.
Typically what happens when a team has as much success as City did in their first season, gets way too excited with their roster and they overdo it. Like Nashville Predators are a perfect example. And I know hockey and soccer are constructed differently.
It was different though. The City
they instead of
build, they tore down.
Well, that's what but didn't they bring in different players though?
That was last year after it had torn down.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
They tried to reconstruct it.
I thought they brought in guys that season to where they shipped some out that were impactful players, and they brought different guys
like
in.
Building from within kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was like they had like veterans. And some of them were still young, but like veterans, quote unquote, that were here, and then they shipped them out for guys that they were ready to like give more opportunities to. I don't know.
They made more of the additions at the transfer window last year in the middle of the season, and they played well under Hexworth, who's now going to be the interim at City 2 since they promoted the City 2 coach. But that's why you would think that this should be leading to more success, and it's not. And I don't know that it's just a style thing either. We'll see, but I'm not expecting them to turn this around. I'll be curious to see what the reaction is from ownership. Ownership is the one that I am now really honing in on. Of okay, I mean you let the GM make this one more move. How are we going to grade him now? How are we grading Lutz? Because it's now his roster and his responsibility now that he's moved on from the coach.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 636. Guys, I saw a piece earlier today over on The Athletic about what it would take to trade for Paul Skeens. If the Cardinals wanted to do so, what would you be willing to offer? I can't believe this is a real conversation we're having.
I can, because it's been reported on by Ken Rosenthal. It's real.
No, it's been speculated on by Ken Rosenthal that...
It's smart.
Go ahead.
Anything Ken Rosenthal said. It comes out of Rosenthal's mouth.
So the piece today was from, was it Bowden that wrote this?
My boy Jim.
Time to get Jim on.
I'm actually hoping to get him on next week. He talked about the Cardinals over the weekend, so maybe we'll try to get him on.
Oh, was he positive?
He was, yeah. He said the Cardinals should go for it. Mo's not going to go out a loser, basically.
Yeah.
Wow. How the times have changed.
So we put together packages from the Cubs, Dodgers, Red Sox, Tigers, and Mets as, okay, what would it look like for them? So for the Cardinals. I want to say this on the front end. The Pirates should not do any of these trades. They should build around Paul Skeens, not trade Paul Skeens. It's crazy that anybody would suggest otherwise, but here we are.
Shame.
I think any deal probably starts with one of Nootbaar, Walker, Wynn, or Donovan if you're the Pirates. You have to include one of those four, and it would probably be up to the Cardinals to decide who.
Yeah, I don't even think Walker's in that same category. I think it would be Nootbaar, Wynn, or Donovan.
Maybe.
Because I think Walker...
if I am the Pirates, I would say you have to include Mason Wynn.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I'm not talking to you unless you're willing to start there.
Or Ivan Herrera.
Sure, yeah, one of those two.
Yeah.
And if I'm the Cardinals, I would say I'm not doing that.
Yeah, hang up.
So this isn't happening. But if you were to put together
I would hang
your
up
best
too,
offer,
by the way.
What would it look like?
Well, now I'm just throwing a bunch of pieces to the puzzle to see if it works. Walker, Gorman, Burleson,
Libby, probably.
Libertor.
Because you're replacing him in your rotation.
Yeah, probably another one of your younger pitchers. Hintz, Matthews.
And then one of the catching prospects.
And then one of you, Bernal or Jimmy Crooks, one of your catching prospects. Like, I'm throwing like 7 or 8 pieces at the puzzle so I don't have to give up my best guys.
And Pirates shouldn't do that. But yes, I agree. I think it's probably similar to my best offer.
Do it. Get the most for Skeens now.
How can you lose a 7-for-1 trade?
All 7 of those guys could become stars.
Yeah.
And now the Pirates just built the World Series winner.
That would be awesome if they won a World Series doing that trade before the Cardinals did with Skeens.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. In 15 minutes, we'll dive into a game of more likely to happen. You guys give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely. But next, the last team that we saw that felt as though it had a really extended runway in the NL Central. Like, they were good then, and then they had a long period of time where you thought they would be good to great, was the Chicago Cubs. And that started really in like 2015, 2016 range. Do you feel that way about either the Cubs or the Cardinals right now? Is this the beginning of an era for either of those two teams? Talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So you look at the divisional standings right now, and it's very clear. Like, Cubs and Cardinals are the two best teams in this division. There's really no close third. The Brewers are 3.5 games back. They're right at 500 of the St. Louis Cardinals. Alex, the Cubs have developed what is a pretty good young core right now. I don't know what the future is going to be for Kyle Tucker there, but if he sticks around, that's a stud to be in the middle of their order to go along with Pete Crow Armstrong, who's been excellent so far this season. They've got a ton of power. Crow Armstrong, Tucker, Swanson, and Suzuki all have at least 11 home runs each so far this season. Those four guys combined have more home runs than the Cardinals as a team do so far this year, which is just a crazy thing to consider. Now, it's also worth noting, for context here, they have gone up against a really weak schedule thus far in 2025. But they've been very good. The lineup looks great, and they have some homegrown players that are starting to come through their system, and they look to be like on the path of being a very good team for the next 3 to 5 years. The same thing could be said of the Cardinals. Like, if I was in Chicago right now, I would probably be looking down to St. Louis and be like, oh my God, they've done it again. They're developing more of these stupid position players like Brendan Donovan that you can't get out, or Lars Nootbaar, who gets on base 36% of the time, or Victor Scott, who's going to be running wild against me, or Mason Wynn, who's now a franchise shortstop. And where the hell did this Ivan Herrera guy come from? So both teams look fun and young and good. The last time that I felt this way about a team with like an extended runway was probably that 2015-2016 range, where the Cubs had started to develop their homegrown talent that ended up going on to and winning the World Series in 2016. It did not last as long as anybody expected. It was like a shooting star. It was amazing while it happened, and then it was just gone. Poof, into the ether. Do you feel like the Cubs or the Cardinals are building that right now? Or is it not at that level? It's certainly not to the same degree, of course, as those Cubs. They were unbelievable. But do you think we're watching the beginning stages of a 3 or 5 year run for either of those two teams?
I don't think so. Specifically on the Cubs. The Cardinals, maybe, but I think a lot of this is dependent on, do they develop the star in the middle of the order like we think Ivan Herrera could be? Like, I look at the Cubs, and I'm not taking anything away because they have been awesome, but those four guys that you mentioned, we all know what Dansby Swanson is. Like, this is great for Dansby Swanson right now, but do we think Swanson all of a sudden is going to become this stud bat in the middle of the lineup? No. I don't think so. And Pete Crow Armstrong, and I know this is like, you know, he's still young and this is developing, and maybe he does become this, but to me, the Cubs offense screams a lot of, well, Kyle Tucker is there, and it's been kind of a fix-all to where you put that guy in the middle, everyone else has the opportunity to flourish. I think Suzuki's a good player. I think Crow Armstrong looks like he's a really good player, but the fifth best hitter on that team is Carson Kelly right now. So, like, I can look at the Cubs and say, yeah, this could be sustainable. But if they opt to not pay Kyle Tucker and they let him walk in free agency, or even if for some godforsaken reason they trade him at the deadline, I don't think that happens, I think the Cubs could fall back to where they were last year. That's why I kind of wonder if the Cardinals might be a little bit more sustainable, because all of these guys that they're developing right now are young and they seemingly are going to be here for the long haul. But it also feels it's very dependent on the Cardinals to develop that star player. Specifically, I think they need Ivan Herrera to become that bat that we think he could become.
Yeah, I don't know about the Cubs because of the Tucker situation, because a lot of these names that we just read, now Pete Crow Armstrong is having a great year compared to what he was last year, but a lot of these guys have been on the team, right? Suzuki's been a pretty good player for them for the last 3 years. Dansby Swanson's been about league average for them, but gives them excellent Gold Glove level defense at shortstop. Ian Happ, slightly above league average player, and yet, like, they didn't make any noise in the division, right? They were above 500 slightly last year, but everybody looked at them, they didn't make the playoffs, and he said, the Cubs are okay. I think it's the Tucker effect. It's the, hey, now we have this okay lineup, and then it's, okay, now we just brought in a shiny toy that's a freaking star in Kyle Tucker. So I don't know how sustainable they are if they don't re-sign Kyle Tucker. And then for the Cardinals, the reason that I'm going to say I don't know how sustainable they are is because, just a peek behind the curtain, you know, BK was texting us last night about the Baltimore Orioles of, hey, when you do finally get done with this rebuild, that's when you should start to push, right? That's what the Cubs did. The Cubs signed John Lester to a big contract to be the ace of their rotation after completing their rebuild. And I think they even did that signing a year early. Orioles didn't do that. They've fallen apart. So the reason that I bring this up is I look at the Cardinals. They've got a lot of really good pieces. They are missing a star, and maybe Herrera becomes this. But right now I'm going to say he's not in that category because you got to prove it for a while.
Sure.
how are you going to get the star if not then? And then what does their payroll look like, right? What has made the Cardinals such a sustainable force was, yes, their development was good, but they also had the financial might to keep up here in the NL Central to really push themselves ahead of everybody else. What does their payroll look like moving forward? And that is a big question for them coming out of this retool, whatever you want to call it. That's why I'm not willing to say they are a sustainable model just yet. They're trending in the right direction, but I'm not willing to say that either one of these teams is sustainable for the long run.
I don't know how sustainable they are at the level they're currently at. Like, I don't know if the Cubs are going to be a 100-win team with, like, regularity. I think it all comes back to that Tucker conversation. If they can re-sign Kyle Tucker, that's a team that's dangerous. Yeah. Not just for right now, but for years to come. That guy's a stud, man. I know T-Bone tried to convince everybody on the St. Louis airwaves that Kyle Tucker is not a superstar, but he very much is.
Average player.
I mean, you look at the numbers that this guy has produced now consistently for the last 6 years. I mean, OPS by season. I would think this is somebody that T-Bone would like, but apparently not. 915, 810, 890, 995, and this year he's at a 925.
I'm so tired of your issue.
What's wrong?
I'm so tired of it.
He just feels the van going over and back over and over and back over.
Well, he's been
in my defense, he was on an Astros team with like 6 stars, so he kind of disappeared from the spotlight. He hit like 8th in their lineup.
It is insane how good that Astros team. It's a reminder of what the talent was on those Astros teams, that he became almost like the forgotten guy, and he's now the main attraction in Chicago. I think it's actually, by sidebar real quick, I think it's been a good thing for Kyle Tucker that he has become this. Because now you're seeing him without that cast of characters in Houston, where he is the guy. Dude, he is not shying away from any of that stardom. Like, he has actually thrived because of it. So I think that even makes him more attractive as a potential candidate for free agent offers this upcoming offseason. If I'm him, there's no chance I'm accepting any kind of a deal right now. But yeah, it all comes back to him. And for the Cardinals, a lot of it is just the uncertainty of what is Ivan Herrera long-term? What can Matthew Liberatore be? Is Jordan Walker, is this what we've seen in the last 10 games? Is it real? Is this going to carry? And then he takes off, right? I don't know the answer to those questions right now, so I don't think it's what it was for the Cubs in 2015-16. I don't think either of these two teams are in that way. But, man, it's a hell of a lot more reassuring than anything that the Reds or the Pirates have been over the last 5 years, because they were supposed to be this. Like, think about all of the young talent that we've seen, where, like, the Reds in particular, every year we come into the season and people are like, this is the year. It's going to work for him this season. It didn't happen last year, but this is the year that it all comes together for those plucky Reds. This season it was, well, all they were missing was the manager. And now they've got a Hall of Fame manager, so it's all going to work out. And maybe it will. They're 500. Like, they're a fine club. But to me, I watch them and, like, they've got some talent. That's not the same level of talent that the Cardinals have. Like, I'm watching the Orioles right now on the other side. They have a star, a legitimate star in Gunnar Henderson. Do you guys watch this series? And I honestly felt kind of the same way whenever they were going up against the Tigers. Tigers have some really good young talent. Do you guys feel as though these teams that the Cardinals have gone up against lately are, like, out-talenting the Cardinals? Because I don't. And I know that's a weird thing where, like, it's just a feeling. It's not something that I can prove to anybody, but I feel as though the Cardinals, talent for talent on either side of things, are right there with these clubs, position player-wise. Set aside the pitching for a second.
Yeah, position player, it feels like it, specifically because you've got, it feels like the Cardinals have more guys that can come through in a big moment than what some of these teams have had. Like, Baltimore's a perfect example. I don't really feel like Gunnar Henderson has done a whole lot so far in this series between the two, but he's
a stud, though.
That's the super. No, but what I'm saying is that's the superstar you go to. But Baltimore, if he's not producing, who's producing for him? Whereas the Cardinals, if Ivan Herrera's not producing, well, then you got this guy who's going to produce. Like, they've got 5 or 6 guys. It's why the Cubs, I think, are so interesting right now, because it's not just Kyle Tucker. Sure. It's Suzuki, it's Crow Armstrong, it's Carson Kelly, and then you get 4 or 5 different guys that can produce. But, yeah, I think the reason that they're playing on the same ballpark as these guys that have the superstars is because the Cardinals aren't relying on one guy to be the superstar.
And I do think what T-Bone said about, like, the Orioles and the pitfalls of what they've become is a really important thing to hone in on, since we're watching this right now between the two teams. Dude, Baltimore had it all right there. Like, they did all of the hard stuff. All of it. They went through the losing. They got the draft picks right. They developed those players internally. They reached the big leagues. And many of them have experienced real success at the big league level. Some of them have now gone on to the other side of things. Like Adley Rutschman, maybe he's not a star. He looked like it for 1 year and ever since has been like a league average hitter. It's really strange.
And
but
he could be like playing tough position, getting beat up. But that just goes to show how quickly it can go.
Yeah. But when you have that, when you go through that experience, like what the Cardinals are going through right now, and they didn't have to go through the hard stuff that the Orioles did where you're really losing, like tanking losing. When you get to the other side, as an ownership group, and it is them, that is who the pressure should be on. You have to be ready to invest. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, dude, what's the point of any of it? Like if you're the Pirates right now, you went through the hard stuff to get Paul Skeens. Well, you've got him now. Now's the time to invest. Like you won the lottery effectively. No pun intended. Like you literally did win the lottery, but also like this is the jackpot. You got the guy. Now supplement that with the requisite talent. And if you're the Cardinals, the pressure soon, if not now, will be, all right, you took your medicine for a year. You got that payroll back in line with where it needs to be or where you want it to be. Ready to invest now? Because the club is better than anybody anticipated it. They are ready for this runway to get going. Like no longer is it about runway for opportunity. Now it is runway for success. That's going to be the next thing that the Cardinals have to be prepared for organizationally. The Orioles weren't prepared to do that. We've seen this with other teams across Major League Baseball. They get through the hard part and then you're stuck and you stagnate and then go back down on the other end and the other teams continue to progress ahead of you.
So let's say that they get to that point and let's go down the hypothetical path that the Cardinals are willing to invest because I think a lot of people's answer would be we're not investing.
We're going to blow dust off the wallet?
Where are they investing? Because like the Cubs are, we've got to invest in Kyle Tucker. Like that's the guy.
Sure.
I want that guy.
Do the Cardinals invest in the bat or do they invest in the starting pitcher?
TBD?
No, it's not an answer that's obvious for you.
I think it depends on what happens the rest of this season. I think it depends on Jordan Walker and Ivan Herrera, and I think it depends on Matthew Liberatore. Maybe this is to answer your question with a question. Can Matthew Liberatore be considered a number 2 starter by the end of this season?
Yeah, who do you believe more? And do you believe in the development of Liberatore becoming who you think you are or Ivan Herrera becoming who you think he is?
Because I think that's really the question for this club is, do you need a middle-of-the-order bat or do you need somebody that can pair with Sonny Gray at the front of your rotation? Because I think that one of those two spots is probably where you're going to need to invest.
And if you're going to ask the Cardinals that, I think they're hoping that Liberatore becomes it because if I'm the DeWitts and DeWallet's opening up, I would much rather invest $500 million in a position player that's going to be here for the long term rather than a pitcher who might break 2 years.
The other thing, and this is another pitfall that Baltimore fell into, you can't become overly cautious with the current players on your roster. Like you can't just say, we need all of these guys. Nobody else can have any of them. They're all ours. We're going to keep them here forever. Because like then playing time becomes an issue. Then guys start to lose their value. Then you end up with a guy that goes through a slump and then you're trying to play another dude. Like it just becomes a complicated mess. But
basically the 23 Cardinals.
Sure. More importantly though, it becomes a situation where you're light somewhere. For the Orioles, it's their pitching. You had the surplus on your position player side of things. You could have used it. You choose not to, and now you're stuck, right? And so the Cardinals, like you look at it right now, and if, let's say Liberatore does become that number 2 starter they're lacking, or it feels as though they're lacking, where do you add that superstar player, Alex? I don't know. Like I look across the diamond, I genuinely don't know where that guy plays.
Yeah, that's why
this club right now.
You have to get him in a trade.
But you could find a spot by creating one for that player. Like maybe it just ends up being Walker's a part of that deal, or Gorman and Sajaci are a part of this deal, or Arenado goes elsewhere as a part of a deal this offseason, and then third base becomes the opening. Like they can create that spot, but you better have a guy inserted into that place that is a true superstar level talent, and those guys aren't easy to find.
And right now it feels like it's the outfield. Because if Walker's not the guy we're talking about, Lars Nootbaar, I mean, by the time he hits there, he's going to cost you a lot of money, and are you willing to pay that? Like, it feels like the position that you're looking to put him in is an outfield spot. And those, Kyle Tucker, look how
that
hard
could
it was.
change.
Yeah, it could change. It
Could change in the next 3 months. Walker, maybe this is real. He becomes a dude, and now, like, Walker's that guy we're talking about.
Yep.
Or Walker becomes a dude to the point where you're willing to bet on him long term, and now you open up third base, and maybe you look this offseason to find somebody for that spot. I don't know. Or maybe it becomes J.J. Weatherholt, right? Maybe third base becomes an opening because Weatherholt needs that runway now, and then boom, you're going about it that way. It's complicated. These things aren't easy, and they don't have, like, obvious, clear answers. This is why Chaim Bloom's going to make the big bucks, because he's the guy that's going to have to make some of these decisions. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, more likely to happen is next.
Alex Ferrario back with you to tell you about my friends over at Classic Air Care, the company that has been making people comfortable since 1926. And when it comes to your HVAC system, this is the time of the year where you might need to invest in a new one before it gets to that 90-degree consistent weather where that HVAC system is working overtime to keep you cool in the house. Your unit might be 25, 26, 27 years old. And look, you've tried to keep it alive as long as possible. I did this in both of our homes, and Classic Air Care was able to get the most out of those units. But at some point, you got to invest in a new one. And that's where Classic Air Care comes into play. They've got financing options available. They actually have a tool over on their website, classicaircare.com, that can give you an estimate of what your HVAC system is going to cost. You enter in a couple of different pieces of information, and Classic Air Care gives you that estimate. But I do urge you to have one of their knowledgeable technicians to come out, because they'll look at the unit, they'll check the pieces, find out, because there's maybe some parts that could work on the new unit that you don't have to pay the extra bucks for. It's not black and white with Classic Air Care, man. There's so much more that they can help you with. So have them come out, tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, check out the maintenance agreement as well, and schedule online over at classicaircare.com. Again, Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you which one is more likely here on BK and Ferrario. All right, let's start out with this, boys. More likely to win their respective title, the Indiana Pacers or the Edmonton Oilers?
Indiana Pacers. I don't think the Oilers can win without Zach Hyman. And I know that seems crazy to say because they've just been awesome in this conference final against Dallas, but I'd argue Dallas hasn't put enough pressure on Edmonton, and I don't think that's anything Edmonton is doing. Florida is going to be a force to be reckoned with, so I think it's more likely that the Pacers win because I don't see the Oilers being able to win it.
See, I think I'd go more likely Oilers because as much as, and I am a Pacers fan, a casual Pacers fan, I don't think they can beat the Thunder. The Thunder, to me, feel inevitable. I don't know if I feel that way completely about the Panthers. I think they are the better team, and the Hyman injury does throw in a wrench into this. But, man, McDavid and Draisaitl, those guys are just different. Like, that is, like, those guys make it look too easy on the ice. They make it look like when you have a superstar in the NBA, which shouldn't be a thing in the NHL, but those guys make it look that way. So I'll go Oilers.
I go with Oilers as well. For what it's worth, Vegas has the Pacers at 5-1 to win the NBA title. The Oilers are plus 115. So it's like even money on the Oilers. The Pacers, if you think that the Pacers will win the title, you can make some serious money on that right now. Vegas is very much still shorting them. I think OKC has been just slept on all season long, and especially into the postseason. Their defense is the best thing that anybody is doing in the NBA this year. They're excellent. They do not have a true superstar. Somebody on the text line asked earlier today who was the last team in the NBA to win a title without a legit superstar, like a full-bloomed superstar. I don't know. It's been probably the Pacers, or excuse me, probably the Pistons back in like 2005, I guess it would have been. It's been about 20 years since that team, but SGA just won the NBA MVP this year, so that feels even a little bit different. It's hard to describe what we're witnessing right now, but it does feel a bit like a transition period. Alex, what do you got for us today?
Guys, more likely to happen, the Cardinals make a trade at the deadline from their infield depth or from their pitching depth?
Infield depth. I think one of Gorman or Sajaci will be a really good chip to play at this year's deadline if they want to go that route.
Yeah, I think I'd go infield depth as well. I think you've got Gorman, got Sajaci, as you mentioned. Those guys, we'll see. I'm a little skeptical on the value of Gorman, but according to the baseball website we use, they say he's got value across the board. So I think you would trade from that. I think the Cardinals are going to be very hesitant to make a deal that will involve any kind of pitching depth because every time you hear them talk, even now, they still will bring up, hey, we don't have starting pitching depth. We don't have starting pitching depth. It's kind of been the North Star to some of their decisions this season. So I'll say it's more likely they would trade for their infield depth.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more likely they would trade for their infield depth. I think teams are going to be calling to ask for the pitching depth. And that's where I wonder if they don't make a trade. Because other teams may say, like, because I don't think the Cardinals are giving up J.J. Weatherholt. And I don't know if teams want Sajaci and Nolan Gorman as the piece to get it done. They're going to want a pitcher, and that's where the Cardinals go a different direction.
Guys, more likely to happen, the St. Louis Cardinals make the playoffs, or one of Illinois or Missouri make the college football playoff.
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say one of Illinois or Mizzou make the playoff is more likely than the Cardinals because I think both teams have a real chance this year. Yeah, I'll go with one of those two as opposed to the Cardinals. Because, man, as much as we enjoy what we're seeing right now from the Cardinals, and I am not diminishing anything they have accomplished, right now you're tied for the final wildcard spot. Like, as of today, you would be in by the narrowest of margins, and you'd have to play a play-in game against the San Francisco Giants. I think the Diamondbacks eventually will get back into this thing. I think the Braves eventually will get back into the mix with this. I don't think the Cubs are going anywhere. I think they're always going to be around with the Cardinals for the rest of the season. So it's going to be a dogfight to be able to get in.
It's kind of where I'm at as well. I think it's going to be Mizzou, more likely Mizzou or Illinois, because as much as I like what the Cardinals are doing, and I think they can put up north of 85 wins, now that Atlanta's healthy, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And then you're hoping/wondering the Giants fall out of it, but then you got the Diamondbacks to worry about. Really, your path is to beat the Cubs, and that's what's going to get you in, and I don't know how likely that is.
Yeah, I think it's probably Illinois or Mizzou that get to the playoff, because I think it's going to be a lot like it was last year. Like the Cardinals, they finished above 500 last year. They were 83-79, and I think that was the record Arizona got in, if I'm not mistaken, in 2023. There are years that will be good enough. But this looks like it's going to be like last year's playoff field, where it required 89 wins to get in. That was the wild cards last year. It was the Padres at 93 and the Braves and Mets at 89. I think it's going to be very similar to that again this year. So that's why I'm a little skeptical, because this is a good team. They're not a great team. They're going to need help at the deadline to get to that spot. But I'm getting the 2 outs of Illinois and Missouri who feel like they have realistic chance. I'll take those guys. Say it with me, boys. ILL!
No.
MIZ.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the
Where's Kerry when I need
636.
him?
Guys, more likely to happen. The Cardinals will pick up Michael Wacha in a trade next year at the next deadline, or they extend Sonny Gray to another 3-year deal. So more likely they trade for Wacha or extend Sonny Gray. I would say trade for Wacha.
Oh, yeah. I don't think they're going to extend Sonny Gray.
How old isn't Sonny like 35, 36?
Yeah, he's getting up there.
Wacha's 33. And also,
That's crazy to me.
I know. And also, I mean, I know the Royals aren't in a great spot, but they're 1 game out of a wild card. Why would they trade away Michael Wacha, who's been one of their best pitchers?
I mean, I'd be very surprised. He just resigned there, too. So
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if that happened, but I'd be even more surprised if Sonny Gray, who has 2 years remaining on his deal and is 35 years old, signs another 3-year extension.
What a
here
way
in
for
St.
Mo to
Louis.
go out. Let's lock him up for 3 more, boys.
Here you go, Heim. See ya.
Yeah, good luck.
I would say it'd be Wacha.
Yeah.
That would be mine.
I'd say neither, but yeah, Wacha.
Yeah. If I had to take one, I'd go Wacha.
All right, 314-399-9646
Royals are dumb. They'll do something stupid.
is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. From the 618. Guys, more likely to happen. McGreevy replaces Pallante or fills in for an injury in the rotation. I'd say the injury
Yeah,
side.
it fills in for an injury. I don't think you're going to replace Pallante unless you make a trade.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're going to make any replacement, even though like it's been a little bit of a high wire act from Andre Pallante. You know what you're getting, right? You know he's going to be 5 and dive. As long as he keeps the games close for the most part, you're okay with it. I think you're waiting for injury. You don't want to rush your depth up here. And again, as I just said, that's been their North Star this season with their decision making, is their starting pitching depth.
More likely to happen. The Cardinals win 81 or 91 games this year.
Oh.
Boy, I don't... Much as I am into this team, I don't know if this is a north of 90 wins. Although, if you want to be a playoff team, like I said, I think you got to beat the Cubs, and that's going to be it.
They're on a 91 win pace right now.
Which is so
Like,
wild.
almost exactly 91 wins.
And
Just like a month ago, they were like on pace for 91 losses.
Yeah, I know. And not to be BK, expecting the shoe to drop on the other side, but like a losing streak is going to happen at some point. I'll say it's more likely they do 91 wins. 81 seems like it's a massive losing streak, and I just don't know if this offense has the ability to go into that cold of a spell.
I think that would require injuries.
Yeah. It's kind
Which
of
are possible.
To the pitching staff, they found a way to overcome the injuries on the offense.
I'll say 91 wins.
I think I'm going to go 81 because like I think even healthy their ceiling isn't 90 plus. It's probably 85, and then I'll play into there probably will be an injury or two that pops up. I would say it's more likely 81.
But what about when they trade for Paul Skeens?
Oh, well, when we do that, I mean,
101.
yeah.
Cool. Just wanted to make sure.
All right, last
gonna
one
hit
here.
this rotation of Skeens, Michaelis, and
Gray.
Gray.
Most likely position for J.J. Weatherholt when he reaches the major leagues. Third base, second base, or shortstop? Shortstop's spoken for. He's
Yeah.
not.
You can
displacing
move
Mason.
Wynn.
Yeah, Wynn can play elsewhere.
Either second or third. I'd probably say second. Most likely.
Yeah, I think you start at second and then maybe shift him to third depending on what Donovan's role is, JC's role is, and what your roster looks like.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would say second base. I don't know how good of an arm he has. Without knowing that, I would lean towards second base. If he's got a cannon of an arm, I could see where, like you're saying, it's a year at second base, and then when the Arenado deal expires, you move him to the hot corner.
Yeah, you might be looking at JC at second. Eventually, Donovan goes to the outfield for somebody, whether that be a Lars Nootbaar, just he doesn't get re-signed. Walker doesn't become the player that they currently expect him to be, whatever. Donovan goes out there, and then like JC at third, or they have signed somebody for third. If you're just looking at the long-term outlook for the infield/outfield configuration. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Coming up next, how long do you have to be a star before you're recognized as such? We got somebody on the YouTube chat that I think, makes a fair point. Guys, Tyrese Halliburton is a superstar right now. I do think there is a slight difference between being a star-level player, your performance is at a star level, and being recognized as such. So when do you get that recognition that you clearly deserve? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here. The Sports are update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals beat the Orioles yesterday 7-4. Tonight will be the rubber match of their 3-game set in Baltimore. 5:35 will be first pitch. Miles Michaelis will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports are driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See Milano.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
What do you have to do to reach superstar status within your sport? Alongside Alex, and T-Bone, I'm BK. That was difficult for me to say.
Alex and Alex.
Tyrese Halliburton seems to be reaching that status right now, or at least he should be. So far this postseason for the Indiana Pacers, he's averaging 19 points, 10 assists, and 6 rebounds per game. Those are ridiculous numbers for any guard in the NBA. And now he's done this in back-to-back postseasons, where he's led the Indiana Pacers to the Eastern Conference Finals in each of those. And now he's on the verge of leading the Pacers this year to a stunning NBA Finals appearance. I don't think anybody was expecting the Pacers to get there when these playoffs began. And yet here we are. They're up 3-1 after last night's win against the New York Knicks. Alex, between Tyrese Halliburton for the Pacers and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the Oklahoma City Thunder, you could throw in Chet Holmgren, honestly, with them as well. These are guys that are stud, high-level basketball players. And yet, I would bet like 40% of our audience right now listening, because we're not in an NBA market, are totally unfamiliar with who they are or what their game is. Or like, if you asked our audience right now, hey, what position is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? I don't know what the percentage would be that would recognize, like, that guy's a guard, or that Tyrese Halliburton is a guard, or where did he go to college? What, like, it's just not, they're not players necessarily that resonate yet the way that, you know, Steph Curry eventually did. LeBron James certainly has for his entire career in the NBA. So what do you think they need to do to get there? Because Shai won the MVP this year. He might win the NBA Finals and win the MVP in the same season, which is a rarefied air. Tyrese Halliburton is putting together clutch performance after clutch performance in back-to-back postseasons. They're both on small market teams. They both didn't have the same kind of hype coming into the NBA that many of these players do that end up becoming true superstars. So what do they need to accomplish on the court or off of it to get that recognition?
Boy, I don't even know if I have I think the player has to have their moment in the postseason. Like, that feels like what typically puts the player into the star category. And I don't even know if that means you have to win it, but I guess it means you have to be in it, if that makes sense. Like, because we were talking about this in the office. I had no idea that Halliburton was in the Eastern Conference Final last year. I thought they lost in the second round. T-Bone and I were like, they lost in the second round. No clue that the dude made it to back-to-back Eastern Conference Final. Does that change if you get to the NBA Final, to where now it's like, cool, you're one of the last 2 teams standing. This is where everyone is talking about you. Like, that feels like when the player does something that puts him in the history books or puts the team that he's on the map and he's the reason why, it feels like that's when that player becomes a star. Like, I think everybody, I'm trying to think of the comparison in hockey of a guy that wasn't a star that became a star. And I just don't know, because hockey's so weird to where it's like you're either a star or you're not a star. There's no in between. But basketball, I guess, can have that as well. There's no in between. You're either a superstar or you're just a player. And I feel like Halliburton's in the player mode versus the star mode, and maybe that comes down to getting to the NBA Final.
Yeah, I think it requires, and like it's hard to say this because like being in the Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals is a big deal, but I think you've got to be in the NBA Finals, and it's got to be for a run, which is weird to say because like LeBron didn't really have that early on in Cleveland. But I think to your point last week, 2 weeks ago, when we were talking a little bit about these guys potentially being the next wave of NBA stars, like, I can't tell you like that I followed Halliburton throughout college, right? Like, LeBron was like, you followed him through high school, you kind of went on the journey with him, and then not only is it, hey, he's a star, you watch him play, he looks great. He also is, hey, he's on like every commercial out there, right? Like, he's doing Nike ads, he's doing Gatorade ads. I don't even know if Halliburton has a commercial. I know Shai Gilgeous has like 1 or 2, but it's still not a lot. I don't feel like I see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a bunch of ads. And I think that is the biggest difference is you've got to see them on as a brand almost, see them as guys that are out there and promoting themselves. But they've also got to be on the biggest stage and play well at the biggest stage. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, this could be year one of getting to the NBA Finals. You've got to get back there multiple times.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line to get involved in the show. I wonder if maybe some of this is just like guys like LeBron and Steph take up so much of the oxygen that there's so little left over for all of the other players in the league right now to take that next step into stardom. You know, it's like maybe some of this is just like they need these guys to age out. They've been playing for so damn long. True. They've become the faces of not only their franchise, but of the sport. It's almost like when Tom Brady was in the league, right, with the Patriots towards the back end of his career. Like, he was still the guy, even though he was into his 40s. And so there was very little room for other guys to get their rings. Like, it wasn't about necessarily like the oxygen in the NFL. Everybody can become a star, right? But in the NFL, there was so little room for who can end up getting up to that like pinnacle of the sport. Because who's going to win the rings? And it was always Brady. He was still keeping everybody off of that perch. Hell, even into the end of his career, he kept Mahomes out of the winner's circle. Because Mahomes twice was defeated in the postseason by Tom Brady. So I wonder if there's some of that going on here as well, where nationally people just talk so much about Steph and the Warriors and LeBron and the Lakers because they're big markets on these teams that have this massive history recently for the Warriors, long-term for the Los Angeles Lakers. I think there's something to that as well. And when those guys go away, now like you're almost forced nationally. And I'm not talking about shows like us, dude. We don't spend a lot of time on the NBA. So we're not like thought leaders in this area. I'm talking about, watching ESPN during the day. They talk a ton of NBA. They barely talked about Tyrese Halliburton this year. They talked about Shai, but most of it was centered around whether or not you like the style of play, because he is one of the guys like really leans in to draw the contact, and he's a free throw merchant. There's nothing wrong with that. It gets him a ton of points, and he's good at the free throw line. So yeah, keep doing it. It's successful. But it is kind of James Harden-y in the way that he plays, that herky-jerky style to a degree. So that was more the conversation about Shai, which is unfair. It shouldn't have been. It should have been this guy's taking the next step. He's the next face of the league potentially, but it's not. So I wonder if there's something to that part of it as well.
I think that is part of it, but Giannis kind of moved himself into that, right? Like Giannis kind of moved into that tier with LeBron, and Giannis came up in the more of, I don't know if I'd say European prime of LeBron James. But
I guess that's true.
Jokic did the same thing. So maybe that is the case, but then I have a tough time explaining.
Those guys are unicorns, though.
And maybe that's
especially Giannis. Giannis was talked about like the moment he got into the league because his nickname was the Greek Freak.
Yeah, he's 7 foot, this ridiculous reach, and he just looks different. Yeah. Like, I've seen a lot of guys that look and play the way that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander does, right? I've seen this before. It works. It's a really, really good player. But I've seen a lot of guys do it this way. I've seen a lot of players play stylistically similar to what Tyrese Halliburton does. I haven't seen anybody like Jokic. That's different. A dude that big, that size, that shoots that way, that distributes the way that he does, that's like Bill Walton reincarnate. You look at Giannis, I don't even have a comparison for that. Like,
there is no comparison.
Ridiculous. Kevin Durant, right? Like, that size, shooting that well, scoring the way that he does, it's almost incomparable in recent NBA memory. So I think there's something to that as well.
And I think to that point, like, I don't know if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to become a guy that becomes a face of the NBA or Tyrese Halliburton. And the reason I say that, because when you just said Giannis, the name I thought of, and it's a little different because Giannis is not a three-point shooter, is Wembanyama, right? Wembanyama, that dude's a freak. That guy's 7 feet tall, can dribble, shoots the three-point ball. He is like Giannis, and he's going to get bigger, stronger. He is Giannis that shoots the three. So, like, I think there's a better chance that he becomes more of a star and with a historical franchise like the Spurs than you will see in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or in Tyrese Halliburton.
We got this from the 618. I think there's almost like a disconnect here, and maybe it's the way that I'm communicating it. I'll try to be better at it. They said SGA will have beyond the same amount of success as Luka Doncic, but BK thinks Luka is over Shai. But we only know that because his son is the same name, spelled the same way or not.
Nice.
They continue talking about how I'm like insane about this. People can enjoy the NBA without having a team. SGA is an obvious superstar. Man, like, I I'm talking about like Luka Doncic has more name recognition nationally than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I don't think that's a controversial opinion. Like some of this stuff you just look at like whether it be their jersey sales or like followers on Instagram or any of these different things, like commercial success, as T-Bone's talking about. This is not based on like me. I don't care. Like I don't care who has the most name recognition in the NBA. I find it to be really interesting, though, on a human level, which players resonate with you guys. And I think up to this point, that hasn't been the case for Shai or for Halliburton. I wonder if that changes in this year's finals. Like, will we get, because what did we always hear, right? Oh, the NBA is always the same two teams. It's always the same teams. You can predict it at the beginning of the season. We know who's going to be showing up. What's the regular season even for? We play these playoff games, and yeah, it's a 7-game series, but we all know LeBron, Steph, like it's the same 3, 4, 5 teams over a decade span that continuously play. Well, now it's different. Now this is changing. Nobody picked the Pacers to get here. OKC was picked as a preseason favorite, but there was a lot of skepticism on a team this young without a proven superstar at that point in time being able to reach this kind of status. And yet here they are. So things are changing right now. We'll see if that's reflected and if people did really want this in their NBA finals based upon whatever the ratings are for the upcoming finals. I will find that to be a really interesting storyline to follow. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, has Jordan Walker now earned everyday reps in right field where he is getting those reps even at the expense of Alec Burleson? We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. Junk Drawer coming up next. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. Have you guys seen the Stephon Diggs situation?
Yeah, I saw a video of it this morning.
What? So he's on a yacht.
Of course he is. That's always the start of a great story. Oh, he's on a yacht.
In Florida. His girlfriend is apparently Cardi B.
Did not
And
know that.
they were having a good time. He is then videotaped. I will use the word flirting with other women on said yacht. And then he has some kind of a package with some kind of a substance in it. And this video has since gone viral, Alex. And he's not at OTAs today.
Those are voluntary, BK.
They are voluntary. I don't care if he shows up to OTAs. It does not affect me in any way, shape, or form. I'm totally cool with guys skipping out on OTAs. Whatever. It is what it is. But Mike Vrabel was asked about this today, Alex, at New England Patriots OTAs. It's worth noting, Stephon Diggs working back from a torn ACL. They signed him to a big contract this offseason.
He does look hurt.
He said the following, Mike Vrabel did. Quote, "It's something we're aware of. Obviously, we want to make great decisions on and off the field. Any conversations that I've had with Stephon will remain between him, I, and the club." He was then asked if he would be practicing today, and he said, "Well, you guys will find that out here in a minute. Whoever's here will be practicing. And as you probably see, he's not here." Not a great way to start out the offseason if you're Stephon Diggs. This is like the unofficial beginning of like the 2025 season this week for a lot of teams, like the first mandatory minicamp. Now for Patriots, it is voluntary still, but for a lot of teams, they're going for mandatory minicamp right now. Oh boy, God bless Stephon Diggs, man. I remember that video from the Vikings a few years ago.
Oh,
they put it on social media.
I thought you were going to mention the Paul Pierce one.
Oh, no.
That's kind of what I thought of when I saw this. I'm like, what is going on right now?
There was a video a few years ago when Stephon Diggs was still on the Vikings. Their team social media department put it out. They asked a bunch of different players within the locker room, hey, who is the last person on this team that you would want to date your sister? And every single person that was asked said Stephon Diggs. Every single one of them. And I think we're probably seeing a little bit why.
Yep, I can understand that one. That's the leader of their wide receiver room, by the way. That's the guy that is going to be leading the offense as the veteran with Drake May.
Hey, man, if he's out there and he's working hard whenever he's on the field, I don't care. You do whatever you want to be.
According to the video, he's always working hard.
That's right.
Dude, the one video is just like, what is happening right now?
It looked like a good time.
It looked like a great time.
T-Bone, we should get T-Bone on that yacht.
T-Bone, you need to find a way to get
in.
on that yacht.
Can you imagine T-Bone in that situation?
Yeah, I can.
I legitimately cannot.
I can picture it.
We should Photoshop a garden gnome on there. We can say, oh, T-Bone made an appearance.
I can picture with T-Bone just in the back in his swim trunks, holding like 2 bottles of champagne, just pouring it over himself.
Yeah.
Like he's the one guy on the yacht standing alone, just dumping it on
And then
himself.
like the video pans back over, and I'm like passed out on one of the
Remember the
chairs on the
scene in
yacht.
Superbad when McLovin was like at the party and he was trying to get people's attention? That's what I picture T-Bone as on the yacht. What's up, guys?
Do you think T-Bone's got like a full collared shirt all the way buttoned up to the top?
Yes, with a bow tie.
Does T-Bone wear glasses? Like fake glasses?
Like fake one without lenses? No, I don't think so. That's too James Bondy.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not me.
Yeah, no. I think
What do you think T-Bone's reaction is if one of those women backs up on him and starts doing a little
twerks
twerking
on him?
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. Boy, that's a great question. I don't know what my response is on that one with T-Bone.
I don't think T-Bone knows.
I think T-Bone, would you run away or would you stay?
Well, he's on a boat. He can't
I was
go
gonna say,
anywhere.
Oh, you can run away and go hide in a corner somewhere. You can
You
go.
gotta be like jumping overboard.
Yeah, no, well, that too. You can go under deck if you need to. Deck. Calm down. I don't know how T-Bone would handle that. Honestly, I don't know how I would handle that.
Not well, man.
No, I'm not.
There was music that was over like
I'd say it's too loud and there's too many people and I need to get off this yacht. That'd really be my response.
I think if we got a few Mick Ultra Cactus Lime in you,
Oh, yeah.
you could be okay.
I'd be down to clown. I could
think you'd be
dance.
all right.
I could dance. I'd be the guy on the dance floor trying to keep the party going.
I don't see that at all.
The funny thing, T-Bone, is most of our station otherwise, I think, would be comfortable in that situation. Like the fast line, I think all of those guys would be just fine. The morning show, maybe Doug. Doug would be a little out of place.
Doug would be fine in that one.
On this yacht.
Doug would be fine. I don't even think Martin would be comfortable there.
I don't know. I haven't seen Martin in social settings, so I'm not sure. I could see him.
No, I can't see that.
I actually think Martin would probably be
I
okay.
place Martin more in the Doug category, where I'm like, I think that would be uncomfortable.
See, I view my Martin more in the
I also don't view that as Jackson being comfortable in that situation.
Oh, I absolutely think Jackson would be comfortable.
If somebody started twerking on Jackson, absolutely not.
I think he'd be fine.
No.
Jackson works on TMA, man. I think he'll be all right.
Totally fine. Jackson's personality does not strike me as somebody that's like, yep, party central.
I think Jackson have a good time.
I think Jackson would have a great time. I think Jackson would have a great time. I think Marshy would have a great time.
Marshy,
I think if we got Alex drunk enough, he'd have a good time.
You get enough cactus limes in me, I'm in.
I just don't know.
Oh, I'd have a good time.
Do you think you would have fun in this situation?
I saw that yet. I'd have a good time.
Okay.
I know. I'm looking at some of these videos, and I don't know about that, T-Bone. Like this one right here.
Really are
this one right here.
Place.
I don't know if I could see T-Bone in the middle of that.
See, I can't decide if I think he would be in the middle of it all, or he would be sprinting away.
I think he'd be standing in that.
Just jumping into the water, swimming back to shore.
I think T-Bone, and for those of you who are wondering which one we're talking about, just type in Stephon Diggs on X and you'll see which video. I think T-Bone would be in the hot tub by himself.
Well, that hot tub, I don't know if you want to go in.
That hot tub was empty. I don't know if you want to be in it, but it is empty. And T-Bone's like, where's the party? T-Bone's in here.
Coming up at the 1 o'clock hour, we'll be joined by Chris Kerber, who I absolutely could not see in that setting.
Oh, Kerber could handle it.
He'll join us at 1:30. Coming up next, though, is Jordan Walker earned legitimate everyday reps at this point. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Has Jordan Walker earned legitimate everyday playing opportunities at this point? This has been the case. Now, some might push back and say, like, hey, he's playing most days right now. Sure. I'm talking about, like, Lars Nootbaar almost never gets a day off. At this point, Victor Scott is a not just everyday player. Like, you go back to May 2nd. You know how many times Victor Scott has not been inserted into the starting lineup since May the 2nd?
BK
Zero.
game, one.
One day. It was
zero.
May 12th, and that was a day where Jose Barrero got the opportunity to start in center field.
And had a big
since
game.
then has not appeared in a game as a starter for the Cardinals. Walker's a little different in that regard. He was off on May 14th and played twice. Then off for 2 days, played twice. Off for a day, played 3 times. Was supposed to be off yesterday, but there was a late scratch by Brendan Donovan, which allowed for Jordan Walker to be a part of the starting lineup. Ends up going out there. He was great. He was a really, really good player yesterday. Had that huge triple for them. Helps them win that baseball game. Alex, now you look at it in his last 10 games, he's batting .375. He's hitting for power. He looks like the player that we hoped he would become in 2025. Are you now to the point where you say to yourself, I just want to see him get everyday playing time? Or you say, you know what they're doing is working. Continue to do these work days where you have 2 or 3 days in a row, off. 2 or 3 days in a row, off. How would you go about this if you were in all issues?
I would stick with what we've been doing, what they've been doing, I should say. I don't want to see them change anything with Jordan Walker because of the success he's starting to have. I don't think it makes sense that, you've got multi-hit games in 3 of his last 4. And yes, he started every single one of them, but I don't think it makes sense to say, cool, now you're just going to play for the next 7 days. I think you keep with what the schedule has been, because obviously the work that he's been putting on the days off have been impacting him at the plate, working with Brant Brown, working with John Jay. Now, if the swing seems like it's in a good spot and Jordan Walker feels like he's fine, then yeah, you give him the runway. But I wouldn't be looking at this like a Victor Scott where it's like, dude, every single day you are out in right field. Because you do also have Alec Burleson, who is performing well, and he deserves to be in the lineup too. So I'm not sitting here saying he just is strictly a platoon bat, but I do think there's a feel-out process here to where it's like, look, if Jordan Walker needs a day off, don't hesitate with it. Give him the day off, let him work, and then put him right back in there and give him another stretch of 4 to 5 games.
I like the way they're handling this personally. I look at it and I say, you've got to find ways to get Alec Burleson's bat in the lineup right now. I mean, that guy has been a huge contributor offensively, and I think they've done a good job with that. Like, he's playing couple of days a week at first, couple of days a week in the outfield. They'll probably eventually will get him some DH days whenever you see. I think that was the plan yesterday originally, was for Burleson to be in there while you had Herrera behind the plate. It's like they're finding ways to make this work with him. I think that's really smart. And it seems pretty clear to me, Alex, the changes they're making in the cages are finally starting to take place with Walker. Keep those up. This is different, obviously, but like, when you're working with your kid on how to read, right? You don't just like, oh, they're starting to get it, now let's stop. Like, you continue to build on that. And so with Walker right now, he's starting to figure some stuff out. Keep at it. Make sure that stuff maintains, because we've seen in the past, Walker has reverted back to some of his old habits. So you've got to keep that work up over the course of the week. And if that means a couple of days a week he's out of the lineup, so be it. Whatever it means for him to be able to have the best year of development, I'm all in favor of that. And what they've been doing lately seems to be working.
Yeah, I like what they're doing as well. And I like it for 2 reasons. One, like you just said, like whatever they're doing right now behind the scenes with Jordan Walker, it is working and it's translating to the baseball games right now. If that changes, then it's another conversation. Also, I like the fact that, like, I don't even know how much of this is a Jordan Walker conversation as it is a Alec Burleson conversation. As, sure, Jordan Walker is playing better. It's a 10-game stretch. We've seen guys go through 10-game stretches. We'll see what this looks like as we continue along. But I'm not going to just ignore the stretch that Burleson's on as well. Like, that guy is playing himself into the lineup. So that's why I like what they are doing. If Burley cools off, or if Burley was kind of what he was at the beginning of the year coming out of, I think it was spring training when they moved away from him, and then it was kind of Gorman, I would say, okay, maybe it is time to finally do the full, let's go all in on the runway for Jordan Walker. Let's give him basically a 7-game and 7-day stretch, see what it looks like. But right now you've got 2 bats that are playing really well, though they are still operating under runway. Look, they should be pushing a little bit more now because they are in this race for a playoff spot. So I like the way that they've been handling this, and I think you have to continue with this until you see potentially Alec Burleson cool off if he does.
Have you seen Alec Burleson's numbers this month?
It's insane. Well, I just looked at his last 8 games. He's got an OPS of 970, so I can't imagine
That's
a month.
the last month.
Wow.
His OPS this month in May is 975. He's batting .330. He's 19 for 58, 4 doubles, 4 home runs. So 8 of his 19 hits are for extra bases so far this month. The guy's on fire. I mean, he looks like first half of 2024 Alec Burleson suddenly. And it basically took shape at the beginning of this month. He has a hit in almost every game that he's played in so far this month. This is the guy that I thought he was going to be. And then last year, the second half really threw us off the scent. And like the first month of this season was not good for Alec Burleson. It was really ugly at times. But he looks better right now. Man, this is part of what a deep lineup allows for. T-Bone mentioned us before the show yesterday. Do you guys know Lars Nootbaar's really struggling? He's like 1 for his last 19.
Yeah, didn't even know it.
And my honest-to-God answer was no, didn't even recognize it. Because so many other guys in this lineup just seem to pick up. Yesterday, Brendan Donovan, the guy that leads the National League, I believe, in doubles so far this year. He's like 3rd in the National League in average. He doesn't play, and ho-hum. Cardinals offense just finds a way to once again produce double-digit hits in the game, scored 7 runs, win again, get a couple of homers, back-to-back triples in the 8th inning when you absolutely had to have them. This offense they have so many different ways to beat you. And to me, that's what I like most about this team. Like if I was to say, like, what is the thing that I would hone in on and say, I enjoy watching that part of them the most, it's their ability to beat you in so many different ways, especially offensively, but I'll throw the defense in there as well. They're really versatile in that way.
It's just, to me, and I felt this last night, just like I felt it against the Diamondbacks, the Tigers this season, like, it doesn't matter what the scenario is. The Cardinals always feel like they have a chance to pull themselves back into a baseball game. And honestly, that's got to be exhausting for the other side to think that, hey, this game's out of reach. Like the moment that Jordan Walker struck out in the 6th inning, you got to imagine the Baltimore Orioles were thinking, cool, we've got this one in the bag. And then next thing you know, boom, 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 and you find yourself down by 3 runs. Yep. That's what this Cardinals team is right now. And it's not the same guy doing it. It's not always the Paul Goldschmidt or the Nolan Arenado or the Wilson Contreras. Man, you've got to find a way to get the outs from number 1 when it's Lars Nootbaar all the way down to number 9 with Victor Scott.
Yeah, typically there's like 1, maybe 2 guys in their lineup that I'm like, don't feel great about that spot in the lineup right now. Like yesterday, it was Nolan Gorman, right? Now it ended up working out.
I was going to say, those sometimes come through.
Yeah, he hit a triple in a really big spot for them. But I didn't feel great going into the game about him batting 7th, right? On a lot of games, it's the Pedro Baez spot. And yet, the guy's batting like 350 with runners in scoring position. So he's coming through in the clutch. He's just not a hitter that I consistently feel great about whenever he's coming to the plate. But otherwise, man, feel pretty good about this lineup right now, 1 through 9 for the most part. That's not something that I've been able to say about them in a really long time.
Yeah, and you asked the question earlier when we were talking about sustainability of the Cubs and Cardinals. You said, do you feel like they're out star-powered when they go up against some of these teams? Like Gunnar Henderson, I would probably take over anybody on the team. But and like Riley Green kind of gave that effect to the Cardinals. And I think when you go up against some of these other, like the Phillies, they have more star power. But I would say this, and this is where you really haven't been able to say this in a while, and I think it ties into what you're saying of they're just so deep 1 through 9. They may not have the same star power to go like punch for punch with somebody like it was 2 years ago when it was, hey, you've got Harper and Trey Turner. We have a Goldie and an Arenado. It is, okay, that's fine, but the equilibrium between, okay, so you have 4 stars. We have 9 above average hitters. Like, okay, we'll take our shot. That gives us a fighting chance in this. And to your guys' point, I mean, everything just feels hard, right? Like, you watch these pitchers, I kind of feel bad for him at times. I'm like Tarek Trouba when he went up against the Cardinals. I mentioned it. The top 3 in the Cardinals lineup forced him to throw 50% of his pitches in that outing, which is just a ridiculous rate. So they may not have the star power, but they are deep, and that's what is allowing them to. You don't notice these guys when they are slumping.
This is the exception. Most of our text line seems to agree with us, right? Like, people are in on the Cardinals right now for the most part. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. I wanted to say that as the disclaimer because I don't want this guy to represent the entire text line. That's not the case.
This is a BK
But it is
text.
an interesting text to me. Guys, the Cardinals are super surprising, but let's slow down. They are still just 7 games above 500 on the season. Sure. And I don't think any of us are ready to throw a parade. I don't feel like we need to say that in every segment. And so, like, I guess maybe we do. We should have something. If you're watching over on YouTube, we should have a disclaimer on the bottom that just says, like, hey, we're not throwing a parade, but we need to talk about this. We think the Cardinals are good.
Alert, we do not believe they'll win the World Series.
Run differential is not the end-all be-all, but it is a telling sign, right? Last year, the Cardinals had a really horrible run differential compared to their overall record. This season, it's the opposite. The Cardinals' run differential on the season is behind only the Yankees, the Cubs, the Tigers, the Dodgers, the Mets. That's it. Sixth best, basically tied with the Phillies, plus 43, plus 44. Sixth best in Major League Baseball so far this year. Not just in the National League, overall. So, no, I'm not throwing a parade. I'm not telling you that you need to, like, get this year's shirts printed, World Series champions. But the Cardinals are good.
Do you remember when the last season, what date it was when they were 7 games above 500?
They didn't.
Yeah.
They never reached 7 games above 500. We mentioned this yesterday. The last time that they were 7 games above 500, I think it was August 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, of 2023.
Yeah.
Or 2022.
There were 6 games above 500 on July 8th last year. Yeah. And that was the closest they got to it.
Yeah, they never got the 7 games above 500.
And, like, just maybe I'm off on this, but just watching that team last year, like, that one you really had a tough time convincing yourself of, like, okay, this is a good team, a team that is going to be 7 to 10 games above 500, because, like, when they won, it was hard. It was, boy, we're not coming through with runners in scoring position. Our 2 stars that were supposed to carry this team aren't playing at that level. Goldie and Arenado were not playing good baseball. You didn't really have the supporting cast around them playing to a level like we're seeing right now. And he just looked at their pitching, and now this is probably where some of the comparison is. He looked at their pitching and went, yeah, I don't know if this is going to sustain for them. Like, this whole Lynn Gibson thing, I think even at that point, Lynn was hurt.
Yeah.
You just looked at it and said, I don't know if it feels sustainable. To me, this feels different because when they win, they're doing a lot of it feels like they're doing a lot of comebacks. We'd have to dig into the numbers to prove that, but it feels like, to our point, they're never out of a ball game. And 2, when they do win, dude, they do it in a fun brand of baseball. Where it is yesterday, they're hitting triples. They're coming back from in that game. And when they put up runs, they don't win games like 2-1, like 7 runs yesterday, 14 hits. That's different.
They have been playing a lot of close games lately. So that's something. Like, early on this year, they were blowing teams out left and right. Lately, it's been a lot of 1-run wins. So that's something to keep an eye on. Maybe it is starting to have a little bit of a rubber band effect. But, man, I haven't seen a lot of real issues emerging that are overly concerning. The other thing that I would, like, one of my questions, just big picture baseball wise, is can you win this way? Like, not just win 90 games, but win in a meaningful way in October. Man, you look at it, like 2023, the Arizona Diamondbacks made it to the World Series that year. Now, they had somebody emerge as a superstar with Corbin Carroll, but otherwise, they just had a really deep lineup of young, good players, right? And just a really solid rotation. They had a few guys that were like swing and miss stuff, but that Diamondbacks team coming into the season, hell, going into the postseason, nobody thought was going to go on that kind of a run. 2021, the Atlanta Braves, they didn't have Ronald Acuna Jr. as a part of that run. And yet they made it to and won the World Series that year by a really deep lineup of just really good young players. 2020, the Tampa Bay Rays. 2020 was different in a million different ways, but like, they had somebody emerge in the postseason that's a really good young player, Randy Arozarena, that allowed them to be carried into the postseason. Guess what? That guy could be like Ivan Herrera for you. Maybe he just emerged and he's going to have this crazy year. Who knows if he's ever able to repeat it again. But for right now, he's on a wild ride, and hopefully it continues to carry him. So it would not be the first time. In fact, more often than not, in the last 5 years, you've had a team get to the World Series, reach that World Series point. That wasn't all that dissimilar from what the Cardinals are right now. So, yeah, maybe we will be having a parade downtown. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line. Why is this style of hockey working for the Oilers when it has so clearly failed for the Toronto Maple Leafs? What is Edmonton doing differently? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So why is this style of hockey working? The Edmonton Oilers went to the Stanley Cup final last year. They are on their way to potentially doing so again in 2025. And yet you look over in Toronto on the other side of Canada, I believe there are different sides, right, Alex? Toronto on one side, Edmonton on the other. It's not
Alberta,
working for them.
Edmonton, Toronto,
Ontario?
Yep. Different provinces.
Calgary, Canada. It's somewhere up there.
Edmonton's West Coast, Toronto's East Coast. That's all I know.
Alex, why is this working for Edmonton? Because I look at them stylistically, and I don't think they're all that dissimilar from what Toronto's trying to create. They're both rush-oriented offenses. Like, hey, let's go get our superstars as many opportunities as possible offensively. Why is it working for Edmonton and it fails so spectacularly every offseason, every year for Toronto?
I mean, for me, it's because of the style of hockey that they're playing, meaning going to the front of the net. Like, if you look at where the shots and the goals are coming from for the top players, like meaning Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, these guys are scoring goals standing in front of the net. They're getting the dirty goals, as teams would like to call it. The Dallas Stars are not doing that. The Toronto Maple Leafs did not do that. So, like, when you watch the Toronto Maple Leafs play hockey, they're a lot of perimeter hockey. They're a lot of around the outside and hope something comes from it. They've got nobody that's going to the front of the net and trying to get those tips, trying to take the eyes away from the goaltender. Austin Matthews is a perimeter guy. Mitch Marner, a perimeter guy. The best actual interior player is William Nylander, and that's a guy who had success in the playoffs. So, like, when I look at what Edmonton did last year and what Edmonton is doing this year, it's not just because Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are world beaters. They are, yes, but the guy in this series in the Western Conference Finals that has been just as good as those guys, if not better, has been Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, has been Zach Hyman, has been Corey Perry. And how do these guys play? These guys play very different than what the best players play against the Maple Leafs. But to add on to that, Toronto's depth guys don't present the role that you need in terms of playoff hockey, meaning the physicality, the blocking the shots, doing the stuff that you need to do. Their defensemen didn't get involved in the offense the way that the Edmonton Oilers defensemen get involved. And then it comes down to goaltending every single time. I am not a believer in Stuart Skinner, but look at games 5 and 7 for the Maple Leafs, or maybe it was 4 and 6. And then look at game 4 for the Edmonton Oilers, game 4 for the Edmonton Oilers. Game 3 for the Edmonton Oilers as well. Stuart Skinner allows 1 goal in total of those 2 games. Toronto, in the 2 games that they needed to win most, gave up 6 goals and 5 goals. Like, if your goalie's not making the actual saves that need to be made and the team isn't playing to the style of hockey that you need, you can have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl all you want, but you're not going very far.
They're finding a way to make this thing work, and not just make it work, thrive with these 2 individuals. And so many other teams that have these superstar talents, they can't figure it out. They can't break through. So I do find it interesting that this team has found a way. And for so many years, it was always like, hey, they don't play defense. They don't play defense. They don't play defense. And I don't know what got through to them. I don't know if it was a new coach. I don't know if it was just the failures in the playoffs eventually take their toll. And you're like, we have to change things. I have to improve. It's not just on the supporting cast. I've got the players around me now that are necessary. And now it is on me to go out there and make the necessary changes. But when I watch, like, McDavid doesn't look like a massive liability anymore. Same thing is true for Leon Draisaitl. And then offensively, obviously, there's nothing that needs to be said there.
Watch that play that so many people were talking about with Mitch Marner on the ice in Game 5 of their second round when they lost. He turns the puck over in the neutral zone and then doesn't skate and then just watches the play happen by sticking his stick out. That's a guy that could make $14 million this year. And then watch Edmonton play and see if McDavid makes that mistake. It comes down to your best players. If those guys are playing the style that needs to win, well, then everyone else is going to chip in. Kasperi Kapanen's got 2 goals in the Western Conference Final right now. Now, both are empty netters. Don't get too excited about it, but he does. But the reason that the worst players on the Edmonton Oilers are playing better than some of the best players in Toronto's team is because those guys see what McDavid's doing when he's out on the ice for 26 minutes and say, well, if I go out there and play bad, what's that going to look like when I go back to the bench?
What do you make of what's happened to Dallas here? So
Dallas
game one.
Dallas
and
has
now in
lost all of their depth.
The last 3 games, they're down 13-2.
Goaltending has not been good. Jake Ottinger has not made the saves that they needed him to make. They've got no offense from their defense. A lot of this is injury. Heiskanen is not the same guy, but they've got no depth. The one thing that I said was going to be dangerous about Dallas was they've got 4 lines that can score on you. Wyatt Johnston has 0 goals so far in this series. Mason Marchment.
Holy crap, he's a minus 18 in the playoffs.
Mason Marchment has 0 goals right now in this postseason. We mentioned Jason Robertson. Mikko Rantanen, by the way, I think he's only got 3 goals or 2 goals so far in the series, which I know is a lot.
I was about to say, that's pretty good.
But they're relying on one guy to do everything for them, to where Edmonton's relying on 6 guys to produce for them right now.
Strange. They've become the team that has more depth,
Yep.
whereas Dallas is the team that's now relying on the superstar, and it felt all year as if it was reversed.
Yeah,
right?
but some of this does come to goaltending. I watched, what was it? Not last night's, it was either game 2, I think it was game 2. Ottinger gave up a goal on the 3rd shot of the game, and it's like, oh man, you can't do that. And the moment that happens is when everyone else starts playing chase hockey, and I think that's what Dallas has suffered from right now.
How far away do you feel like the Blues are from these teams that we're watching right now?
I personally felt like they could have played the Dallas Stars and competed with them the way that the Winnipeg Jets did. I don't think they're far away from either of these teams because of their goaltending. I think where they're far away is their depth of scoring. Just because, not taking anything away, but you still have some growth for guys like Bolduc and Snuggerud to produce when they're playing on the ice. But I would say they're probably closer to the Dallas Stars than they are the Edmonton Oilers, but that just comes to star power.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up next, we'll continue this conversation a bit and get Chris Kerber's thoughts on the Blues here on BK and Ferrario.
Hey, you know what? I'm sitting around the house the other night, and the air conditioner sounds like it was just working a little extra hard. It was kind of making like a sound that like it was just kind of pumping air, but pumping a little bit harder. So what do? I call up Classic Air Care, and they say, okay, check your air filter, do this, do that. And then I scheduled an appointment to have them come out because I do not want that thing breaking down in the middle of the heat. And I know when they come in that they are going to give me terrific service. They've got a 4.8 Google rating. Their technicians know the units that they are working on. Some of them have over 40 years of experience working on every unit possible. And I know that they're going to tell me exactly what could be needed, what's wrong with it, and how they're going to fix it. And I'm going to be educated in that process as well. That's the kind of confidence I have, and that's why when there's an issue with my HVAC unit, the air conditioner, or the furnace in the winter, I use Classic Air Care. You can use them. You can count on the same service as well. You can get on one of their maintenance plans, which gives you discounts as well as priority scheduling. And if it's an emergency, they got you covered, too, because they've got a 24/7 hotline for you to call as well. It's Classic Air Care. It's really that simple. Something comes up, something breaks with your air conditioner, call them, they'll be out, and they'll fix it, and they will get it done right for you. Classic Air Care, they've been making people 126 years.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals took down the Baltimore Orioles yesterday 7-4, and tonight will be the rubber match of their three-game set. 5:35 will be first pitch. Miles Michaelis will get the start for St. Louis. The Sports Center is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We've got Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, joining us momentarily here on the show. We had him on the air, and then suddenly he was gone. So T-Bone's going to get him back on the line for us. He's, of course, the voice of the Blues, and you can hear him on the call throughout the Blues season. Follow him on Twitter, at Chris Kerber. He's also a birthday boy today, so we'll be sure to we'll wish our guy Chris Kerber a very happy birthday. By the way, we were talking about the Oilers in the last segment, Alex. I should mention a little bit of news to pass along. Zach Hyman is expected to have surgery, will likely be out for the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, that's as massive of an injury as you can have if you're the Edmonton Oilers, second to, like losing McDavid or Draisaitl. But like that's a guy that plays to the identity of how they've been winning so far this season in the postseason. It's been hitting everything and then finding goals in front of the net. And now you're going to see more of Corey Perry and other guys that are going to be playing towards the top of the lineup.
We go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by the voice of the Blues, the birthday boy, Chris Kerber, joining us here on 101 ESPN. Kerbs, appreciate the time. Happy birthday, my friend. We talked in our last segment about the Oilers and how they're having so much success. What do you think it is that's allowed them to have the success over the last 2 years that Toronto just never has with their superstars?
Well, I think that the superstars in Draisaitl and McDavid just frankly work harder than the superstars for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Stuart Skinner is giving them the goaltending that they need. That's a big part of it, of why they've had success over the last couple of years. But then you go deeper into the lineup beyond their superstars, and whether it be, and I know we're just talking Zach Hyman, who suffered an injury, but whether it be Zach Hyman, whether it be Corey Perry, whether it be a lot of the other lineup, it's a lot more kind of straight, hard workers than what Toronto has. And that, to me, is one of the biggest reasons. Now, look, you have two of the best players in the world, in McDavid and Draisaitl. Pretty much that's going to open up everybody else on the ice. Does Zach Hyman become a 50-goal scorer with anybody else in the National Hockey League? I don't believe he does. Okay, but that's really irrelevant because he did while he was playing with, McDavid and on that line. But to me, they've just got a much different work ethic to me than the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Dallas Stars have it. The the Carolina Hurricanes have it and the Florida Panthers have it. But that, to me, is the biggest difference, say, between those four teams and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And again, it comes down to that simple phrase, guys. Your best players have to be your best players. And if you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, their best players can be their best players, but sometimes it's only one-dimensional. Your best players have to be your best players all around the ice. Your number one centerman's got to be your best centerman in the offensive zone, and he also has to be your best centerman in the defensive zone every single game, just about every single shift. And then it trickles down from there. And to me, that's the biggest thing that Toronto has yet to figure out.
Curbs, we know the NHL is a copycat league, and I think all other teams that aren't in the playoffs watch and see trends from the teams that potentially make the Stanley Cup final. Have there been any trends that stuck out to you thus far?
No, I think when I look at the teams that are successful, Alex, I'm really not seeing, much of a difference in these teams going, all the way back to, say, the Washington Capitals. You might have a superstar, you might not have a superstar, but you have an all-around team style of play. And the one thing that you absolutely convinced, you have to play consistent hockey to make the playoffs. You have to play consistent, great hockey to finish with home ice for the playoffs. But you have to play top to bottom, hard-nosed, in-your-face, relentless style of hockey if you're going to win in the playoffs. And that's what you have to build your team. It goes back to what we were just talking about with Toronto. Toronto, they've got Marner that's a free agent. You've got Tavares that could be out of there. What do you do? How do you tweak that? Do they make a move, and do they find some big hockey move out there, almost like Armstrong did with the O'Reilly trade, and kind of change the makeup of that team? Do the Toronto Maple Leafs do what the Florida Panthers did, right? The Florida Panthers traded a 100-plus point player and a top four defenseman. And, yes, Matthew Tkachuk was on the block. Now, I don't know that a Matthew Tkachuk is available out there, but they changed the direction of their franchise and immediately probably look like they're going to their third straight Stanley Cup final. That to me is the trend. That's where you've got to find that style of hockey if you're going to win in the playoffs.
Chris Kerber is the voice of the Blues. He joins us each Wednesday here on BK and Ferrario. Kerbs, I was reading the Daily Face-Off the other day to take a hard right turn here. He talked about trades, though, and brought this to my attention. They put out their top trade targets for the offseason. Now, Kerbs, you know how this works. This could change next week, could change tomorrow, depending on what happens to the teams that are still remaining and, frankly, what teams are planning to do as we get closer to that July 1st date for free agency. However, there weren't a whole lot of names, honestly, on here that I was all that interested in for the Blues. I did want to ask your opinion of one player in particular, and Alex knows where this is going, and I probably know what your answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask it anyways.
I'm going to sit down for this one, Kerbs.
So there's a player on the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's getting up there in age, and he produces a bunch of points from the blue line. He's got a lot of money left on his deal, but it's only for 2 more years. If Kyle Dubas called you and you're in Doug Armstrong's shoes, and he says, hey, could we talk about a potential Erik Karlsson trade? Are you just hanging up the phone then, or at least tearing him out?
Tee off, Kerbs.
I'm hanging up the phone. I'm not going anywhere near it. He can't defend. He's never really been a defenseman, and listen, there was a window in there where, to me, like he didn't do anything to help get well, I shouldn't say he didn't do anything, because they did go on, a run or two, but he wasn't a long-term solution to put the San Jose Sharks over the top, right? He had a couple good runs, when he was a younger player with the Ottawa Senators, right? I think that contract is absolutely prohibitive from a Pittsburgh Penguins standpoint. When he won his Norris Trophy, he wasn't in the top 100 in the league in penalty killers. Him and PK Subban, both did things. Those are two guys that won Norris Trophies that I don't think should have won Norris Trophies. All right? To me, a Norris Trophy winner has to be able to defend on the penalty kill. And if you're not a penalty killer, I don't know how you win a Norris Trophy. The way I look at that, I think the Blues, who were, 4th overall in the league last year with goals from defensemen, and now could get a full another quarter of that season under Jim Montgomery, I think the Blues found plenty of offense in their defense. I think they found that player, to be honest with you, BK, in Cam Fowler. And if you're getting if you're getting that 30 to 50 range, and Perico, if he doesn't get hurt, might have been knocking on the door of 45 points. I don't think you need it. To me, if you're able to get a little bit faster on the back end, in some way, shape, or form, you can do that, but you don't have to take on a contract like an Erik Karlsson to do it. But no, that's one that I'm honestly not considering in any way, shape, or form.
Kerbs, I got another potential scenario for you because I brought it up to these guys in the commercial break, and I'm curious your thoughts. Now, take the Blackhawks side out of this equation, but there's been reports that Jonathan Toews is trying to make a comeback. We've talked about
sit down for this
in
one.
St. Louis looking for upgrade at the center position. Would you take a chance on a 37-year-old comeback season for Jonathan Toews?
I'd take a look at it.
Oh,
Thank you. God, we're smart hockey people.
I'd take it. But here's the thing, okay? I take a look at it. What role could he play? What's he looking at? Obviously, go scout him. Go see, go see if he has anything left, right? The snag of it is where I don't know that really makes any sense for you, Alex. Is I think you've got better, younger options out there that'll actually make you a better team. Now, I love the leadership aspect of it. I love the seriousness aspect of them. I think it would be a great story. Obviously, if that's not going to happen with the Blackhawks, like if somebody said, would you take if you could have had Patrick Kane after he was done with the Hawks, would you take him? Darn right I would have taken him. The thing of it is look, guys, I'm looking at the St. Louis Blues, okay? And if you have an opportunity and it makes some sense for you to sign Radek Fox, I'm re-signing him. You've got Oscar Sundqvist as played as your third-line center. Oscar needs some breaks during the regular season with the way he plays, his body is, but he showed you what he can do and how he plays in the playoffs. I still think if you're going to become that Stanley Cup contender again, I think the key is who fills the second-line center until Dvorsky is ready, and that could be a 2 or 3 year window. Look at how long it took Robert Thomas and how they eased him in, right? Okay, and this is not knocking Braden Shen, but if I've got somebody with a little more speed in that second-line center spot, and I've got Braden Shen as my third-line center, and because of the way the other forwards shake out somewhere, I've got Bolduc and potentially Neighbors on a third line because of the health of Holloway and other forwards and what Snuggerud could do, guys, we are really freaking good. If you can go out, to me, an intriguing free agent to look for is a Trent Frederick. He brings a different dimension to your team that this team doesn't have from a forward standpoint, and that toughness aspect of it. I like that aspect of it, that willingness. To me, he's a guy that changes the makeup of your team a little bit. So I think there are options out there without having to go risk. Now, look, at the same time, Doug Armstrong will look at anything, and if he thinks Jonathan Toews could help this team out, and he ends up signing him to a 1 year deal, well, then enough people have looked at him. You got to have pretty good confidence in that deal.
Kerbs, we got like 30 seconds here before we get you out, and we'll have to go to our next segment. But assuming it's 7 years, because everybody's going to be willing to offer him that, what's the max AAV that you'd be willing to go to on Sam Bennett? Because some of the reports out there are crazy right now.
Absurd.
Yeah, well, I'm not paying Sam Bennett more than I'm paying Kyrou or Thomas.
Agreed.
There's your benchmark right there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Maybe
tell T-Bone why, Kerbs, because T-Bone disagrees with all of this.
Because this guy gets you 50 points, and I know he's big in the playoffs. But the bottom line is, when you make that kind of signing, it can totally mess up your structure. If you sign, say, a 10-year, let's say you gave him $10 million, right, or $9 million to Bennett, and he gets you 50. What are you going to pay Dylan Holloway if he gets you 65 to 70? It's your internal salary structure, and I don't think you need to fight. I just don't think the St. Louis Blues need to pay that much for that player right now. I really like the path the Blues are on. I don't think you need to get a Sam Bennett to get you over the top at the moment.
Man, Kerbs had a lot of really good takes outside of what he said about Erik Karlsson today.
Take a chance on Jonathan Toews. Man, 2 for 2, Kerbs.
BK. That Karlsson deal, that might look good on the lot. I'm telling you, you're going to get it home, and there's going to find some. Listen, terrific guy, well liked, but you're going to find some engine problems.
I've heard conflicting thoughts on that as well. So I don't know, Kerbs. I think it would be a horrible move, but man, it would be a lot of fun for me to watch.
You get that car home, and the engine just falls out.
Yeah, literally, like onto the ground.
You know what? Broberg's your younger Karlsson. Give him a chance.
Both
Why not?
Swedish.
Why not both?
Because
Curbs,
one doesn't play
appreciate the
defense.
time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week. Happy birthday.
All right, fellas. Have an awesome week. Thanks,
Happy birthday,
guys.
Appreciate you. That's Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joining us as he does each and every Wednesday here on BK and Ferrario. We'll hit the rewind next. Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, you know how this works. Sometimes I have to shoot you down first, and then eventually over time, I convince myself, like, actually, something that Alex said was brilliant. And
like how that goes, but sure.
And as I continue to think about the options out there for the Blues this offseason, we talked about these a little bit with Chris Kerber in the last segment. I just don't know that there is a true, like, this is the answer. I thought it was Sam Bennett, and then now he's like, $9 million. No, $10 million. What about $11 million? And that's crazy to me. Sam Bennett's a really good player. I'd love to have him on the Blues. Not for that amount of money for that number of years. But you brought up in the past going to Boston and be like, hey, you know, Morgan Geekie, he's a RFA this offseason. Could we get something done there? Or Pavel Zacha, he's under contract for the next 2 years. Basically the same contract that we were talking about previously with Ryan O'Reilly, $4.5 million per year. Sure, that makes a lot of sense as well. I don't think either of them are like best case scenarios for the Blues this offseason, but could you bring in a guy in Zacha who's like 50 points per year? Sure, I think that'd be totally reasonable, and it's a hell of a lot less than what you'd have to pay for that level of player this year in free agency.
Yeah, I would go the Zacha over the Geekie route, because Geekie, you're going to have to pay a lot to get him via trade. Because he just scored
money via RFA.
Yeah, and he just scored 33 goals. He's 26 years old. I mean, Boston's probably thinking we need this guy around.
Sure.
Zacha's the one I would target. He's 28. He's got one more year after this coming year.
Yeah, 2 years total.
And I mean, he was 53% in the faceoff dot. He was 54% last year in the faceoff dot. He's a guy that floats around 15 to 20 goals, but like you mentioned, he's 50 points, and he's also good defensively. So yeah, this would be a guy that I would target. And I don't think he's going to cost you that much to trade, because the Bruins know where this one is headed. Rebuild. They're going to be spending a lot of assets to try and right this ship. So maybe you could get this for a piece that's in your system. But yeah, I mean, this to me would be a placeholder. It's why I brought up Shane Pinto as the guy. He's my Ross Colton this offseason, because I don't know what Ottawa's going to do with him. He's a third-line center for them. They've already traded for a number 2 center. Can you get him for something that they desperately need? But, yeah, I mean, I'd be calling Boston. I'm not going into the free agent market this year.
I think the more I think about it, like, if you could get Brock Nelson, I'm down to go ahead and acquire
Brock Nelson, John
but
Tavares, I know people are out on that. I'd give it a shot if it's not going to cost you a whole lot. I'm fine with the Trent Frederick, because I don't think that's going to cost you a lot. But, man, I am not paying guys like Sam Bennett or Mikael Granlund or Matt Duchene, because they're going to cost you more than what you need. Plus, they're not going to match what you absolutely need in a second or third line center. And I think trade, you could do that.
Cardinals, theoretically speaking, are playing baseball tonight. There's a lot of weather in the area, so we'll see if that game is actually played tonight against the Baltimore Orioles. Cardinals looking to win that series. Miles Michaelis is on the mound for them. The Orioles have one of their many young, mediocre pitchers on the mound. Do you think the Cardinals, if they play this tonight, will get it done, Alex?
Yep, 4-2 final score.
T-Bone?
I say Cardinals get it done. I'm going 5-1.
I will be very interested to watch what Miles Michaelis does tonight. He's been great ever since that blow-up that he had in Boston. I think they get it done. I think it will be a little higher scoring. I think it ends up being a 7-4 affair. Cardinals find a way to win 2 out of 3 in Baltimore. We will discuss that in its entirety tomorrow here on BK and Ferrario. We will also be recording a new Redbird report tomorrow as well. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.